of like setting the stone, getting the conversation out there for the expectation, and to also signal to the regime in Iran, look, you know, you guys are saying that you don't want to do anything with this. You're saying you want to get into deals. Just remember, we have the ability to come after you. It's been on the table for a while. You know, you guys listen up. We're watching. We're watching very closely what you do. And one more thing to add is the snapback sanctions is really, really key in this. And also the 2015 deal, I think the provision for those snapback sanctions ends in October. And so Iran basically has, if any country, including the US, if anything was to happen between now and then that Iran didn't militarily trigger, I think it would happen after the summer and into October once all of those diplomatic alternatives are expired and exhausted.
Yeah, look, hang on, Brent. I want to try and share the microphone around as much as possible. And if anybody who's on stage could maybe just keep a lookout for people who have been on stage for a while, who are interested in joining the conversation, it's probably a great idea. Welcome, Barang, as well. Look, if I could ask people for the time being, please to share the room. We've only just started this conversation. Look, I found it really curious. I thought, look, I think it's worthwhile having a conversation about this and hearing different people's perspectives and ideas about it. This is not like an Israel-Palestine room. I'm just going to say that straight out. This is not a room for Islamophobia, blah, blah, blah. You can see the topic. This is what we're going to be talking about. Swifty, thanks for your patience. I'm going to go to Daniel straight after that. And thanks for showing your hands. It does help to be able to indicate who's interested in chiming in at certain times. Well, yeah, thanks. Got you, Karan, as well. Swifty, take the mic.
Yeah, so I will tell you that Israel will never accept Iran with a nuclear weapon. So all the cards on the table. Secondly, I think Trump will make sanctions on Iran. He will choke them. I don't think Trump wants war, American war, but he will give the green light to Israel completely and give any weapon that Israel needs. So everything is open this year. That's all.
Yeah, look, you might be right at that, Swifty. Trump's made no secret about it. He's very much in support of Israel, and there's a very good chance that he'll let loose the leash and just allow Israel to be able to do it. But my gut feeling is that America will probably need to be involved in this. They've been sort of on the sidelines saying, "Oh yeah, we're supporting," and cheering on from the sideline. Obviously, supplying military weapons as well as intelligence and so forth as well. But look, I can see America possibly, if this is going to be the case, holding a heavier hand throughout this process. Daniel, yeah, thanks for your patience. And Raha, I can see you, but I've got Karan as well as Brent. We'll go to Raha as well. Thanks.
Hey everyone. Last week, the Admiral Brent Cooper, who is the vice commander of the CENTCOM, came to Israel to meet with the chief of the IDF. Part of it was about releasing weapons that we
never stand for what the West is
doing.
doing.
Almost 2,000 bombs and P9s and whatnot. But they were also discussing about the possible attack in Iran. Trump, when asked about either attacking Iran or allowing Israel avoided the question, he didn't say yes or no. But right now, Iran already has, I think since in the last 6 months, they have another, I think 18 kilograms. So they have a total of about 180 kilos, which is sufficient for about 4 nuclear bombs. They're right now at about 60% enrichment, but the distance between 60% to 90% is not that big. It's more like technicality. And it could be a matter of days or weeks for them to get it. As Iran or the Islamic Republic lost a lot of their powers with losing Syria and Hezbollah and, well, I don't know what they was, but I think because of all the things that are happening with all this excess of resistance or whatever we call them, I think it kind of pushes Iran more to enrich their nuclear weapon in order for that is basically the only deterrent that they have.
Isfahan.
All their enemies and including their
nuclear science
power
researcher.
internally. So it seems that there are discussions. I don't think it's with Biden administration. I don't think it will happen during the Biden administration. If anything, I think it will happen in Trump administration. But there are discussions about at least preparation for a possibility of attacking the nuclear facilities. I mean, 4 nuclear bombs is quite enough that they already have right now.
Well, I mean, it sort of makes sense that, given there has been a complete weakening of the defence systems, as been reported, in many different circles, within Iran, of the IRGC, it sort of makes sense to be able to give this some serious consideration. At the same time, and for discussions, is that taking out some of these targets could potentially take out civilian lives as well. I don't know enough to be able to make comment on that, but I'm sure that would be quite problematic given the, I guess, the amount of upheaval that has occurred, throughout the media and social circles and politics when it's come to people in Gaza who have lost their lives. But I want to go over to Karan, who's been waiting patiently. Thanks, Karan.
Hello, my name is Reza and I live in Iran. I live in Isfahan. We support the Khomeini. We denounce Western imperialism and regime change. And we want to say that any attack on our country will result in a nuclear Armageddon, and the Zionists in Manhattan and Washington, D.C. will all be obliterated in a nuclear war. And death upon the Zionists. We know who you are.
Down the bottom. Yeah, that is a troll.
So let me just say hello. And second off, was that a transgender troll?
It's an AI transgender troll. Welcome, Kelly. Can somebody
Hey, Kelly. And I need to sing on Daniel on bed. I can date it.
Like, we need a hairbrush for Kelly.
Racist.
Kelly, how you feeling? Any better?
It's ton better, thank you.
Loving the PTR, I have to say.
Guys, sorry, I just left a comment as well. If you want to just give a comment, do we have to
You can wave your hand like you're saying hello, goodbye.
No, because there is two types of things. One, I have my opinion that I'm gonna talk about it for 1-2 minutes, and there's this I wanna leave a comment 2 seconds. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, Rahul, I'll get you to make it brief because Brent was also waiting and I had you next in line. But yeah, go ahead.
no, I'm just yeah.
I don't know, maybe 15, 20 shows. It talks about this dark side of technology progressing. And really, if you get underneath the covers, the technology is agnostic. It's our reaction to it that's negative. And if we don't understand how we're going to
thanks for your patience. Feel free to chime in.
Thank
Well, look, one of the things I'm really curious about, and I'd love an American, I'd like a reasonable sort of idea on this. Why is it that Biden has chosen, at the very last, few centimeters of his time as president, to be able to say these things and to be able to maybe even make preparations for this as well?
I mean, if I were to guess, I would imagine they have intel indicators that say they're maybe getting ready to do a nuclear sprint. Like, that's the most rational explanation for why now.
Yeah, look, David, your opinion.
I'll be brief, but thank you. Nice to learn from the room. And exactly what Barang said. We know they have enriched uranium making material, but where has the evidence been that they have a delivery system, that they have, can get it on a missile and deliver it? I guess you can get, missiles delivered from other countries. That technology exists. We probably see that being delivered, but I don't know if Iran has that capability. I don't think Biden wants to start a war right now, but the last comment obviously would be the only reason that they have intel that they can't ignore. And I think that it will be on the Israelis to be on the offensive and probably with our assistance.
On the missile and delivery system, I mean, they have a pretty good B&B program. Like, they have a ballistic missile program that one can reach Israel. Now, putting a nuclear warhead on the missile, that's technical expertise for sure, but it's not like they don't have the capability to do it, or I would think that capability would be so far out of reach. And if you have 4 missiles, you fire a bunch of conventional missiles towards Israel with one that's nuclear armed, and that's kind of the threat right there. Israel, the Arrow 2 and Arrow 3 are great at shooting down, but there's a capacity problem, and if you kind of overwhelm it and then slip through a nuclear warhead, or at least a threat of doing that, could provide a pretty good deterrent effect for both Israel and the United States.
Colonial powers are racist and regime changers. Zionist American Israel are the enemy of the people.
Big crisis.
Yeah, I mean, but you're not, like, a dirty bomb's not going to it's going to spread radioactive material. But, nuclear strategy is counter value or counter force. Counter value meaning you're holding things at value of the enemy. Counter force is you're using it against, as it sounds, against the force. The most logical strategy for the Iranians to do is kind of have a counter value strategy against Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, and that would be a effective deterrence from their perspective.
Pamiri, Roxanne, welcome.
Thank you.
Would you like to contribute?
Levels of recovery, yet something has gone wrong somewhere. So what the fuck is going on? This is what I asked myself. I asked myself what the fuck is going on. Right, and so I did some research. Turns out that consuming sugar really fucks your immune system. Like, really fucks your immune system to the point of turning it off. Like, it's really, really bad. It's actually about as bad as a type of steroid that can allow you to suppress your immune system. Not sure why exactly somebody would use that. I'm pretty sure there's like medical reasons for such thing. But sugar is about as effective, if not even more effective than that steroid. So you're like effectively medicating yourself with this type of thing that limits your immune system's ability to function voluntarily, constantly. What the fuck? I didn't even know that shit. I was like doing a little bit of research because like it didn't make sense to me that I was feeling really good, everything was working well, and then eat something like I had something that was like relatively sweet, and then all of a sudden the recovery goes back to where it once was. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? And I realized it is sugar. Oh my god. I guess that's a running joke now. Everybody's like gonna say, hey Elon, and watch if I slip up. Yeah, that's gonna happen. That's gonna happen.
I heard you. I saw you gaming today. That was pretty awesome.
Oh my god, screw you.
It's good to see you on your burner now.
Oh my god. Yeah, this joke's never gonna die, is it?
No, I'm almost positive you both leaned into it too far now.
A little bit. Yeah, I didn't really lean into it at all. I just existed. That's the fun part. I didn't do any leaning at all. Elon did all the actually, no, we both did a lot of trolling. That's for sure, and it's really nice. It's awesome.
Yeah.
You guys are
great.
You want me to play the clip or where you copy?
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
Okay,
Yeah, play the clip.
It is wild how much Adrian Ditman said. It sounds like me, but anyone who listens to it for a long time can tell it's not me. But it's, I guess, out of 8 billion people, somewhere on Earth, there's someone who's the most like you, and that person is probably Adrian Ditman.
It's the funniest line. It's like, wow, that's actually pretty cool. That's actually pretty cool.
That's cool. That's awesome. That's cool.
I think that is definitely proof that we live in a simulation. Or at least that the internet is. I think the internet, maybe not necessarily the internet itself, but like the tools such as the X app are a surefire way for things to meet each other that otherwise would have never met. Like physically speaking, this kind of meeting would have never happened. But like thanks to the information space that is, X.com, that was the only reason why such a meetup was actually possible, which I think is really cool. So it's fascinating to see how I think entertaining outcomes like these are connected and spread because like this is what I think is indicative of the new age. People always say, why does time pass so differently and why does it feel so different these days? Well, that's because we are getting connected with things that we otherwise would have never been able to be connected to with each other in more ways than we ever have at any other point in history. It's really fucking cool. Like we're more interconnected now than we ever were at any other point in human history. It's crazy. I love it. I personally love it. It's incredible. I feel very happy about it. And it's the funniest thing, like when Elon was trolling in the reply section of some posts, about me being me, we were saying, oh god, you can't do this, well, what would Adrian think of it? I'm like, I think this shit's absolutely fucking hilarious. I don't care. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah. Super funny.
Yeah. Like let's say he can do whatever he wants. I don't care. I'm fine with it. Like people have this like problem. Like I think if trolling was like done, let's say to someone else, it might be a bit different. But I don't care. I think it's fucking funny as shit. I believe in maximizing humor, so I think it's funny. I think it's really funny. I like it.
Hey Adrian, I was just thinking, we could actually like have some really good features for the live streaming on X. Like for example, maybe like tipping or like thanks, something like what we have on YouTube or Twitch. I think that would be like super cool and could help a lot of creators, right?
Perhaps, yeah, but I wouldn't know. The journalist. Oh, that's fucking funny. The Adrian Ditman stories on CNN. That's fucking funny as shit.
Really?
It's funny. The interviewing the journalist, not me. It's like I thought you'd like to get the story. If you'd like to get the story, reach out to me. You can do it.
Yeah, journalists have this ugly habit of never calling you for comment. They do this to me all the time. Call us smear. Welcome to
or they do it at a time where you literally could not be able to see it. And then they say, well, we did reach out to you. It's like, really? At like 4 a.m? Sure. Yeah, definitely, 100%. Like, 100% going to read the message at like 4 a.m. on a fucking weekend. Yeah, 100% that's going to happen.
That's the other trick. Or they'll email your obscure email, and they'll leave you a call or something, and they'll just be at some bizarre time. Oh, I tried. Never trust a journalist.
Yeah, there was like messaging at the most obscure times, like, oh yeah, we're messaging you, and then they put it out like 45 minutes later. I'm like, a lot of nice little forewarning. You think that's forewarning? I don't believe that it is, and you don't really believe that it is either. You just want to have it be this way so it appears that way on paper, but everybody knows that it wasn't. Everybody knows you're bullshitting. I like how people then get pissed about it, because it's like, hang on a minute, you're the one who's smearing me. You don't get to be angry. I do, but I'm not angry. I just think it's fucking hilarious. It's like, why do you think you deserve to be mad? You don't deserve to be mad. You don't deserve to be anything. You're doing dumb stuff. You know, but play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. That's how it works. I don't see how that's not obvious.
Absolutely. I'm sorry that's going, on with you, Adrian. I went through the same thing with this stupid blogger.
No, this is fine. It's just stupid. It's not necessarily, it's not really smearing. Like, I'm not being smeared yet, but there are a lot of lies circulating as to how, some people have done research about me. It's like, okay, so here's the thing. Evidence of me not being Elon is very obvious. I've cited it myself. That evidence was also cited by others. I don't think it becomes more obvious than saying, here's a space that's going, and here's a live stream that's going simultaneously, right? These people are too doing the same thing, doing different things at the same time. So how does that work? Okay, maybe you discard that. Okay, fine. Then how about the time where both of those people were speaking to each other on Spaces? It's almost like as if you could take these voice analysis tools, which are freely accessible to the public, by the way, and measure and check the difference between the two. Right, it's pretty obvious. Then differences in verbiage, differences in speech patterns to a certain extent. This could all be done, but they didn't do that because I don't know why. I guess there was a difference. See, you could do this. See, in fact, if you wanted to understand if somebody is, say, different from another person, you can find various methods by which you could do that, right? Various methods by which you could do that. They didn't use any of those methods that were, say, protecting of an identity. They went through an illegal method, I would even say to a certain extent, to come to plausible somewhat something, but realistically speaking, no, So that's what's going on. So it's very clear what normally journalists attempt to do, because they're not the smartest of people, but they are the most cowardly of people. So when it's not necessarily smearing that is occurring, then it will be cautiously excluding various sources to conclusions that are made in such a way so as to basically ensure the ideology or the narrative that is being pushed is preserved to some extent. There's always intent. Basically, I'd say legacy media journalists are engagement farmers. So engagement farmers are people on social media platforms that post various things in order to get the most engagement, right? Say, for instance, asking questions without even the need to ask a question, without even them caring for the answer of that question. Post it out there because they know it gets a lot of comments and because that's how it works. That's engagement farming. By the way, don't do that. It's fucked up. And it's also against platform rules. I think it falls under platform manipulation, so no bueno. Don't do engagement farming. That shit is bullshit. Okay? Anyways, legacy media journalists do this in that they take certain things that they think are fact and then present them in such a way so as to get not only the most amount of reactions out of something, but to get the right reactions that they'd want out of something. It's a bit more complicated, right? It's a bit more complicated because let's imagine that there is a specific fact out there which is neutral in nature, and you can present it in one of three ways. You can present it in a neutral light, you can present it in a good light, or a bad light, right? So journalists normally, if they are, say, not in support of the journalists normally, if they are not wishing to amplify the thing, they'll be very neutral about it. If they wish to amplify the thing and be in support of it, they'll report it in a good light, and if they're against it, they'll report it in a bad light. Right? because they would hope that the reaction to whatever neutral thing has been put out is on par with the light that they want to shine on it. So that's kind of how it works. It's like large scale. It's like manipulation of the masses through biased and half-truth fueled media. That's kind of how it works. That's what most legacy media is these days. But I regret to tell them that we are the media now. We are the journalists now. This is how it works. Right? We actually have much more coverage, much more relevance. And we don't like to, I don't know, what is it, the one thing that most of us on here do not like to do? Something I myself have even spoken out against. Oh yeah, that's right. Right. Smearing people, that's right. We don't do these things. You know, it's a bad thing to do, and I call it out. Or lying, all these other things as well. You know, doxing, all kinds of weird ass shit. You know, unbelievable. And I don't care who does it. I'll call out anyone for it. You know, like look at someone like Laura Loomer was a perfect example of what happened there. You know, called it out. It was a thing. They got their account locked for a little bit, came back. Still crying censorship, even though they get more viewership than most accounts. I'm like, come on. You can't cry censorship and get 1.6 million impressions on a post. You can't. I'm sorry, you can't. You know how difficult it is to get 1.6 million impressions on a fucking post on X.com? You know how difficult that is to do? You basically have to start a fucking trend, effectively. Or you have to get really, really lucky with something, right? It's very difficult to do. And most people don't even get to do it.
Did you guys see what Trump announced?
Oh yeah, the $20 billion.
No, other than that.
Well, that one's kind of more important than the other thing.
He announced he will place massive tariffs on Denmark if they don't relinquish all control of Greenland.
Really? That's crazy.
He's going to do the same to Canada at some point, I know. Because he's already insinuated it. He said, you know, we're protecting Canada. We're funding Canada. It's like, what if all the protection and funding was just to, I don't know, boop, disappear? Well, I mean, then Canada would realize that they're not so very independent and that they may be more dependent on the U.S. than they are independent in any respect. Thereby, to that extent, given that their biggest supporter, and practically, I think, to the extent that they are having issues, they're one of the only economic supporters, they're technically already the U.S. in some respects. Speculation, of course, on my part, right? I'm just saying, it's kind of a joke that I'm putting out here, if anything else, but yeah. And I think a lot of Canadians, I have yet to meet a singular Canadian who is against this, who actually doesn't think that that's, you know, a good idea. I mean, Blythe, what do you think of what do you think of? You're a Canadian. Blythe here is a Canadian. What do you think of the fact? What do you think of Canada becoming the United States or part of the United States? What do you think?
I think, yeah, economically, it's a great idea. I think a lot of Canadians will be like resistant to the fact, though, so that might be an issue. But like you said, like we are pretty much dependent on them for like a lot of our trade and everything like that. So yeah, I think overall it would be a good thing, but it would be kind of a hard pill to swallow for some.
Yeah, that's probably the most.
It's because people are not used to it, right? It's
pretty good.
It's because people are not used to it. It's like when someone is only used to eating ramen noodles every single day, and you tell him, "Hey, would you like to eat chicken today?" And he's like, "Nah, I'll stick to the ramen." Right? People are used to this, right? Poor people, especially. Okay. Anyway, the point is, did you know that Canada is subsidized to the tune of $200 billion a year, every single year, all this industries?
That's insane.
That's right, and that is a fact that Trump pointed out to Trudeau when Trudeau went there, right, to Mar-a-Lago, and Trudeau was like, "Yeah, that's true." And Trump said, "What would happen if we decided to just cut off that $200 billion a year?" Trudeau said, "Well, we'd be dead. We wouldn't be a state anymore." And so that got him, right? Trudeau admitted it, and that's the reason why Trudeau, all his whole cabinet quit, because they had no real response to Trump, and they're upset. And this is true of any Canadian leader, right? Pierre Poilievre, I like him, but you know he's talking about Canadian sovereignty. But Trump says, "I don't care who you are. You're wrong. You need American money. You will either join us or you will simply die. It's as simple as that." Because why should America subsidize Canada? Why should America be giving all this stuff to Canadians and the Americans are not getting anything out of it?
Not to mention, the only reason Canada hasn't gotten invaded is because its only neighbor is the U.S.
That's correct. If I can quote my good senator, Mr. John Kerry, they want to hate us, they can hate us for free.
Yeah, that was a great one.
Why are we sending money to countries that hate us? They should be able to hate us for free.
He said that exact fucking shit. I was dying when he said that. He's the same person that did the thing with the, what was it? The goat's milk latte drinking, avocado toast eating insiders elite.
You want to defund the police? Well, why don't you call a crackhead?
People were like reacting to it like it's a controversial thing, and I'm like thinking to myself, I mean, it's true. You're gonna defund the police. Who the fuck's gonna come and help you? Good question. Like who the fuck is gonna come and help you? The crackhead? I don't know, man. Maybe that's your best option because no police. Because who's gonna do it? What's gonna happen? You think people work for free? Hello? Maybe in your communist fucking like ideology, but no fucking way, man. This is the real world. We work for money.
Like they're like Canada. They think that they get shit for free because they do. Like, look, Canada only exists because Americans are nice, and Americans have been giving them stuff for decades and decades and decades, and Americans are not really getting, they're not really getting anything out of it.
It's like the Europeans.
Americans don't need anything from Canada. Yes, exactly, the Europeans, same thing. And look, Trump is smart. He's going to play his whole thing with Canada, Panama, and Greenland first, because those are the easiest things to get. Afterwards, he will start asserting his dominance over Europe, because Europe can't exist without the United States. Let's just be fair.
Yeah, I
just can't.
I think
and
one of
Americans are losing
one
a
of the
lot.
most annoying attitudes from Europeans is when they shit on the U.S. And I'm like, the only reason your country is able to maintain anything whatsoever, your healthcare system, your education, all the fucking things you like to brag about, is because the U.S. is paying for your defense.
All the bullshit green energy nonsense, all the, that shit, right? It's just expensive and inefficient, and the only reason they're doing that, or they're able to do that, is because America is, carrying that heavy load for them and making sure that they get access to all this
One thing I
stuff.
don't understand about a lot of Europe is the aversion to technological improvement. In Germany, internet is fucking dog shit, and it's expensive. So it's fucking useless and expensive.
How slow is it there?
It's a ripoff.
There was a point where over 50% of like the YouTube top 100 most viewed videos were not allowed in Germany.
Really? Wow, why?
What
was their reasoning?
Copyright.
Of course. I hate copyright, so that whole system needs to be reformed.
Yeah,
it needs to be a heavy emphasis on licensing, because here's the thing. I think that the distribution of content is the only thing that makes content valuable. Without distribution, it is literally worthless. So, what if with copyright, instead of straight up deplatforming its distribution, like say the IP, how about you make it so that if any money is generated with your IP, say your intellectual property, by the way, so if there's any confusion of what I mean with IP, I mean in this specific context, intellectual property, right? So say, for instance, if somebody were to take your shit, you created some art, it's your intellectual property, and somebody else is like posting it on his like a social media page or whatever, or like, I don't know, using it in a video or uses the art style, whatever it is, in whatever movie that they create, well, then there should be good compensation given, of course. And I think if, say, for instance, you are unable to reach out to the person that owns the IP and distribute it anyways, and let's say you make money out of it, say through sales of some merchandise or, YouTube video, whatever, on here even as well, that the person who's the owner of the intellectual property should get a decent cut of that. So in my case, if this were how copyright would work, the enforcement of copyright would work, then it would actually be good, because then you could say, oh, you want my content? Here, fucking take it, but pay me a percentage of whatever you make, and a decent percentage has to be like more than 50%, of course, right? Yeah. And there you go. or 50%. There you go. You just solved a whole bunch of problems. Now everybody can do it whatever the fuck they want. You can even regulate from yourself personally whether or not this thing this content creator over here has created as part of your canon. You do all kinds of things. You can state this for yourself. You have your own fan wiki, you have everything. Because you know why you get to have a wiki? It's because people actually look at your stuff. And why do people look at your stuff? Because it's fucking distributed. That's why. So without distribution, the information is absolutely fucking worthless. Do you think that a fucking forest cares when you say some super inspirational quote into the forest? It's not going to give a shit. It's also not going to spread it anywhere. So basically, the information that you just output from your brain is fucking useless. Right? So that's what it's all about.
That's right. Yeah. This is the thing that a lot of artists agree with, you know, like artists believe in sharing and, well, I don't mean sharing in the sense that, oh, hey, my stuff is free. It's more like, feel free to be inspired by my work, right? And let's create something that is, you know, a part of this canon. Like, okay, so I just bought these 2 books. It's called Vermis, and I don't know if you've heard of it, but, you know, in the 90s, you could buy like game manuals, right? Say for Diablo, right? You buy a manual and it would tell you more of the canon or the lore of the game than the actual game did, because the game itself didn't really tell you that much of a story, right? It didn't give you the background into, you know, the items, for example, that you looted from the monsters, like the butcher. Who is the butcher? Who was he when he was alive, right? So if you read one of those Prima game manuals, strategy manuals, it would actually tell you the background of that character, right? Things like that. So Vermis is this art project by this guy named Plastibu. He's a European artist, and it's essentially a game manual for a video game that does not exist. And so the game is kind of like, you know, it's very like Dark Souls-ish, and it's got this whole lore behind it. I mean, it's extremely in-depth. Like, if you read this and you looked at it, it's a lot of illustrations in it, you'd think, and it would be, this would be a really cool game. And so, guess what? It's got a fan community surrounding it. They are trying to recreate this game that does not exist in like, you know, in like actual game engines. I mean, that's how cool it is. And it's a, you know, there's like a whole community surrounding it. If you go on Instagram, you can actually find a lot of this stuff. So, I mean, that's cool. And now imagine if this guy, right, this Plastibu guy, imagine if he was like, no, you're not allowed to use my art or any of the stuff I created, and you cannot create this because this is my intellectual property. Like, no one would give a shit about this thing, right? The only reason I'm even mentioning this is because like a bunch of YouTubers picked up on the fact that, you know, games are being made for this like universe that does not exist. It's a video game from another reality. You know, the only reason they're talking about it is because he isn't like an asshole about his IP. So imagine how many more, you know, shows or you know, not shows, but like imagine how many more the cool things there would be out in the world if people were such dicks about IP, you know? Sure.
Exactly. It's a huge limiting factor that you're not. So, by the way, everybody, quote, post the space with join the conversation. So more people are going to be here, everybody on the stage. Yeah, because I saw a few more people join in. What was I going to say? There was like one example of IP. Right. There's a major company that does this, and it really pisses me off. So, you may have heard of the people that have created, you know, Warhammer 40K. So the company behind it, there was a fan, was like a fanfic that was made. Not really fanfic, but like it's a really good movie that was made, just a short, realistically. And it was very well made, but they didn't like it, as in because it conflicted with their copyright, and so they, instead of actually working on something, it looked like they were going to have him work on something, but then he signed something, nobody really knew what it was, but after that, he had to delete all the shorts that he made for Warhammer 40K. And so now the cinematic expansion of Warhammer 40K was killed by the very company that owns Warhammer 40K. How insane is this? A person was willing to do work effectively almost for free, and they didn't allow him to.
Wild. Yeah.
How many people would have watched this shit? Like, if you want to know what it is, it's called Astartes. Like, go search it up on YouTube or wherever it happens to be. It's called Astartes. It is absolutely fucking amazing. If you're not into Warhammer 40K, you need to be. You just watch it, and then you're gonna be, because that shit is insanely good.
It's cool.
It was so well made. Yep. It was really, really good.
I saw it.
Fucked it.
It was good CGI.
What did that company do?
This is the thing.
They fucked it for no fucking reason. This could have made Warhammer 40k a lot more mainstream, but it didn't because there were absolute fucking idiots about it. Yeah. So they
Well, the other problem with that is that chances are not bad. Like I'm not an IP litigator by any stretch of the imagination, but when you do things like that and it's transformative and you're not actually copying anything, like like the concept of Astartes and the concept of a space marine is not copyrightable subject matter, right? Because copyrightable, that maybe you've got some like brand interest or you've got like a trademark interest in it, and so you can enforce that if it's competitive goods, right? But if I draw a picture of a space marine at home and I don't sell it to anybody, I'm not infringing anybody's copyright by doing that. I'm making some art and it's transformative, and I'm taking this concept and saying, hey, here's something else with it. But what happens is these companies are so paranoid about brand dilution in particular that what they do is someone will say, hey, you know what, I'm going to allude to something or I'm going to hint at something, and they're going to worry that they're marks, right? So it's not necessarily copyright, which is an issue, but often it's the trademark problem, and they'll turn around.
Trademark stuff.
And so what they'll do is they'll come in and say, listen, you're diluting our brand by, doing this homage to Superman, right? By doing a Superman short with AI or something, or drawing it by hand or something like that. Star Trek tried to do it. There was a little short that was done with some reasonably well-known actors called Prelude to Axanar, which was like a pre-original series, not lore correct, but like trying to fill in some gaps in Federation early Klingon war lore, and that was fun. And initially Paramount had some kittens about it, but then they realized that everybody loved it, and so they stopped. But like, I hate to say it, but like, it's basically really unimaginative, like asshole lawyers who work in big corporations.
20th Century Fox does that too. 20th Century Fox has killed a whole bunch of Alien or Aliens, mods, right, for video games. So people were making these really cool mods for Half-Life 2, Aliens mod, and they killed it. And these were like projects that they could have simply said, hey, this looks really cool, why don't we license it to you, right? They could have easily done that.
With the games, it's actually,
they're like, no,
with the games, it's actually an interesting one, because what a lot of these companies do is they enter into really valuable contracts and they sell the rights, right? So what happens is they say, hey, we own the Alien thing, and this company is going to pay us $20 million plus a royalty fee to go exploit it. So if they've got someone competing with it, what happens is the companies that developing the game says, hey, what the hell are you doing? I thought we had the rights to that. Why are you letting these people do this? And so they go and enforce it that way. But like, generally speaking, it's really like in a world where creative content is just going to be so much easier to produce, like figure out another way to monetize than just like sending the lawyers in and beating people over the head and demanding licensing fees. It's just not sustainable.
That's just it's not sustainable. And the biggest, sorry for interrupting, but just my thoughts are racing, right? But the biggest problem is that the stuff they license out to the companies that actually make these Aliens games, they're fucking terrible. Like if you've ever played Alien Colonial Marines, it's just complete dog shit, right? Fans have made better games, and in a lot of cases, because the fans had their projects canceled by the company, they're like, you know what, fuck this, we're gonna make our own thing, right? And because they lose the license, I think. Okay, here's a nice classic example. You know the game Fallout? Yeah. Like there's like a TV series now, right? Everybody loves it. Did you know that Fallout used to be part of GURPS, GURPS? This was it's kind of like Dungeons and Dragons style a rule set, right? The original Fallout was a GURPS game, and they had the license to do it, right? But then the guy who owned the license, or the company that owned the license, was like, no, we don't want to put our name behind this. And so as a result of that, they lost. I mean, no one's even heard of GURPS anymore. No, who the fuck is playing GURPS these days, right? Nobody knows it. Yeah, the whole special system, like every single aspect of Fallout is actually from GURPS. Not like the setting itself, but like the rule set, right? They were like, you know what? So the guys at Interplay back then, they were like, we're gonna make our own thing. We're gonna adopt GURPS, but not have the GURPS branding anywhere, because all we have to do is change a bunch of stuff, change names, and then this will be our own IP. And look, that's what they did, and now everybody knows what Fallout is. Now those guys who own GURPS weren't such assholes about it. We would have like a Fallout GURPS TV series or something. Maybe we would call it GURPS because it's a terrible name, but still, nobody's playing GURPS, and as a result of that, GURPS is dead. No one, people are playing Pathfinder nowadays or Dungeons and Dragons, and it's the same thing with Dungeons and Dragons, where in the latest iteration of their rule book, they have like this really onerous licensing agreement that tells you that they own your property,
which is insane because the previous versions of it, you could create a sort of knockoff version of Dungeons and Dragons like with the rule set and do your own thing with it, right? And that's why you got a lot of great RPGs that are sort of based on it. But now, they're such assholes about this stuff. No one's going to want to use the Dungeons and Dragons property anymore.
You gotta talk about Hasbro when you're talking about this, because Wizards of the Coast used to own Dungeons and Dragons, and they were the ones who were great about their IP. And Hasbro got involved, everything changed. It became about profit maxing. That's when you started to see all the big IP collabs, right? You've got I have freaking My Little Pony Magic cards, all kinds of stuff that I've collected because I'm big fan of Wizards of the Coast products, love Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering. But ever since Hasbro's taken over, it's just gone to shit. And it gets worse. Every year there's some new money grabbing move that just takes away from the gamers, and I fucking hate it.
Yeah, that license is effectively garbage. If you talk to someone like Chris Avallone, who actually worked on a lot of these Dungeons and Dragons games, when he saw that Elon was going to try to buy D&D, I was talking to him, and he said that Elon should not buy it because it's fucking worthless, just make something new. And I'm of two minds of it, because it's D&D has such this huge, it has this huge legacy, right? And Elon buying it would be kind of a big deal, but also it's actually fucking worthless as a franchise nowadays because of how much they've messed it up. There's no point in it. You could literally, unless it comes with Baldur's Gate 3, which is a good game, it's not really going to matter, right? So it's going to be worthless if he pays, $8 billion to buy Hasbro and pick up all these licenses. Why not just make new ones?
I don't know. I mean, I am a long time Dungeons and Dragons player, very avid and fanatic about it. I would love to see something change with respect to Hasbro and the way they're operating. I'm losing my games right now, and so I would love to see somebody come and give them back. And if it was new IP, a new different game studio, totally different, it wouldn't have that same nostalgic value that it has to me. And I think they also have to abandon some of the concepts that we love because it gets into those IP issues. So
not only that, but that's the IP for say the Transformers movies. It's included in there as well. Right, if you were to just discard that, the Transformers movies are insanely popular. It's just that the people that have made them in recent times are absolutely fucking stupid about it. Although I must say, to kind of make it more mainstream in a sense for modern audiences, I think the newer Transformers movies were really good at it, except that the amount of retconning and weird jumps in time were kind of a problem that really just killed it at the end, especially with Transformers The Last Night or something, whatever it's called. That really just fucking sealed it. I was like, what the fuck is this? We have Age of Extinction. Nobody explains how anything got to that, by the way. It's okay, we just have that now and everybody's enemies. Cool. Okay, I guess. And then immediately from that, you get into, oh, hey, by the way, Cybertron's back, even though it's fucking destroyed. And it's okay, it's all back now, and it's invading Earth and snap out of Earth. I'm like, what the fuck am I watching?
There's no canon anymore.
I don't know, man. It's okay, cool. Let's smoke a bunch of weed, maybe get on some acid or something like that. Sit in a room for 40 minutes and just come up with the most ridiculous shit ever. We're just gonna print that into a movie. That's kind of what that whole thing felt like. And it's what am I watching?
Yeah, where's the Bumblebee arc, right? I mean, Bumblebee was really the best movie of all of them, right? All those movies have gigantic explosions and all the stupid shit, but Bumblebee was the most human one. You've seen the Bumblebee movie? It's actually really good, right?
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Yeah, it would have been better if it could somehow interface with the future in a way that would make more sense. Because you have this character, right, that first discovered Bumblebee, just like you did in the original Transformers movie that came out, so in the first live action. They kind of played on the nostalgia there. It's 100% clear because they had the discovery happen in much the same way. And so if you were to think about it, hey, whatever happened to the woman that discovered the Transformer? What happened to that? She's gone, just completely retconned away from the story. It's okay, so hang on a second. But what about the general? What about the army? What about the fact that a whole bunch of Transformers were already transforming before? How did they sweep it under the rug? All that needs to be explained, because when you look at something like the first Transformers movie, it is literally the story of how the public discovers it for the first time. So how did they sweep it under the rug? You can't just tell me that everybody just fucking forgot. It doesn't happen. Hello? They have amnesia. You saw big glowing green things. Okay, everybody forgot about that? Okay.
A good way to handle this is to have a Bible, right? I don't mean a Bible as in a religious text, but a text in which you can say, hey, this is the canon of the show. This is the canon of our movie series or TV show or book or whatever, right? And you cannot diverge too much from this. You can obviously play around with it because storytelling is
This has been a fundamental problem with Transformers even way before a lot of the movies came out. So with the live action, with the video games, with everything, is that everybody kept making shit up. Like you'd ask somebody, okay, who are the Quintessons? There are at least 5 different answers that are all equally true depending on which canon you want to go with. Because we just made shit up. Oh hey, what about the movies themselves? The fucking Allspark. That bitch didn't exist. They just made it up for the purpose of the movie.
It's a new thing, yeah. It was never a thing in the original comics or cartoon.
Yeah. It's like, oh wow, this super old thing that gave birth to all these machines, like a whole universe of creation. First movie, it's there. Yeah, let's fucking kill it. Yeah, let's like shove it into a Transformers chest. It's gone now. Yeah, we just destroyed a super ancient artifact. We the heroes. What the fuck kind of story writing is this, man?
It's terrible. It's just an excuse to sell toys, honestly. So they don't even bother to hire a proper writer.
It's just like with Marvel. It's the same shit. Marvel had a super strong fucking start.
Same shit.
Amazing shit. And after Endgame, everything went down the drain. Everybody's depressed. Everybody's this, everybody's that. It's like, look, you're not unplugging from reality and plugging into the movie universe when you're watching these movies to feel as depressed as the character. You're already feeling depressed. You want to unplug from that shit. And now, man, if I fucking see like depressed Iron Man, come on.
This is a problem with the writers themselves, is that they are self-inserting themselves, not necessarily as characters, but as their emotions, right? They are making these characters too real, in a sense that they are no longer superheroes, they're no longer larger than life, right? Like comic book characters are supposed to be. Instead, they're making them average human beings who suffer from depression.
Like, why is a demigod?
Because the writers decided
like, why is a Norse god that's been around for thousands of years, over the last 10 years, why did this thing become an absolute fucking wimp that is saddened by random events? I'm like, this thing has been alive for 3,000 years. It's seen more death than anybody else. And you're putting the human concepts into that? You just can't do that. It doesn't work.
It makes no sense. No, it makes absolutely no sense. I like the original Thor, right?
So, like, how did you not?
Yeah, if you watch the original Thor, he's a completely different character. He is a god, effectively, right? He is a god. He has godlike powers. He knows this. He embraces it. This is his reality.
He's an asshole.
You take that away, it doesn't matter if you do. Yeah, he's an asshole about it too. And even if you were to take it away, that character would handle it pretty fucking well, I imagine, because he's a fucking god. He's lived for 3,000 years. He's probably dealt with a lot worse, with Baldur dying, and this is his brother. Like, he would know how to deal with these things. He wouldn't just turn into a fucking fat loser, like a trailer park. Like, no, that's not him at all. Imagine Donald Trump. When he went bankrupt, did he turn into that? No, because he is larger than life. He's a big man. He's a big character. When Elon Musk almost went bankrupt, did he turn into this, sniveling little shit? No, he did not do that. He rose above because these are larger than life figures. Now, and these are real people, by the way. Now, imagine this is a god who's lived 3,000 years, more powerful than anybody else you've ever known. He would deal with that pretty well. I think. I would imagine that he would find a way to get his power back really, really easily.
Exactly. Like, hey, we got a bit of a problem. Probably knows how to bargain as well, because guess what? You have to live with the fact that, oh, hey, you need to bargain with some of the enemies because you just can't fucking kill everything. But in this sense, when you look at Thor for the first time in the first movie, they made him way too young. You know what I mean? Like, they made him appear way too young. That's not the fucking wisdom of a 3,000-year-old. It doesn't work. Shit changes, And that guy's like, there's zero change on this motherfucker. Wild.
A good way to handle IPs is to do it the way that Bethesda does. They release, every time they make new Elder Scrolls game, there's this Elder Scrolls creation kit, right? And you can do whatever the fuck you want. You can, in some cases, even create a game and then sell it. They don't, they're not
asking. That makes a ton of sense. War with the modders. Make them your allies.
Well, that's the thing. Like with AI, what's going to happen is the whole model that they have now is reliant on selling exclusive rights in one-off deals to large corporations that will then market the shit out of some one-off product, like a movie or a game. They'll sell as many of them as they can, and then they'll move on once they've picked the meat off of the off of the carcass. But like going forward, you're gonna have people doing. I saw a really cool like Star Wars short. Like it was a conversation on YouTube the other day, where and I'm sure Disney's like cracking down on all this stuff, but it was like Dooku, like played by Christopher Lee, talking to Yoda about random shit, like hanging out in a garden in the Jedi Temple. It's like that's cool. I'd like to see a movie about that. And AI is going to make it all possible. But like what you could do, like rethink the model. What if he said, okay, if you have an account with Paramount Streaming and you want to do a $5 a month add-on, what we'll do is we will allow you to watch all of these other authorized shorts. And if you want to make the shorts, guess what we'll do? You can sell them in our shorts portal, right? And we'll have a ranking and, and we'll gamify it a bit so the best shorts get pushed to the top and the worst shorts get pushed to the bottom. And we'll do some revenue sharing as well, like X does, where, for example, if you get ad revenues, we'll split it with you. And what you do is you drive revenue that way instead of saying like this red ocean model where you're just kind of hoarding it all and saying, and like a dragon on a hoard of gold, saying, no, this is all mine. Get the fuck off and go away. So like there's a huge amount of possibility for creative output, but like the whole industry just needs to get broken, which it will. Like AI is getting good enough that Hollywood's like toast, and
it's so funny. I don't think it's toast really necessarily. I think acting and writing is not going to be replaced. You might be able to create, characters that look like them, but I think you should watch Ben Affleck talk about this. Actually, he had a pretty.
I saw that was awesome.
Where he thinks he has to go.
I saw that. Let's go.
Yeah, he gets it right. He's like, we're not worried about it. Like, this is not a real issue. Only maybe like brain dead creators at Netflix might be afraid of this stuff because their stuff is terrible to begin with. But true auteurs, right? People like Hideo Kojima, for example. I know he's a video game developer, but he's an auteur. People like him, the Coen brothers, everybody who's in his movies, right? Like, none of them are going to be affected by this at all because the stuff they produce, the stuff they make. Tarantino, another example. I think his interview with Joe Rogan on the subject is also quite illuminating. He's not worried about this because he knows that the auteurs are going to rise to the top.
If anything, it's going to enhance them.
They always will.
Like that's the thing. It's going to enhance them. You're not going to be replaced by AI. You're going to be replaced by something that uses AI.
Yes. Yep, that's right. Yeah. I mean, we're already seeing this in some of the YouTube shorts. If you look at some of the science fiction stuff that people are making, the guys at Corridor Digital, they make really cool shorts.
Oh yeah, see
this stuff is
that was
impressive.
Great use of AI, by the way. The
good.
anime that they created, wow, great writing.
Right. Like, yep. Exactly, and that's where we're gonna go. We won't need a gigantic studio of 1,000 Korean artists. In fact, like 3 guys in a garage to be able to come up with a really cool anime.
Yeah, I will say it's actually kind of funny. You're like the first person to bring up to me fucking Corridor Digital. Nobody knows what the fuck I'm talking about when I bring up whatever Corridor Digital is. That's fucking great.
Are you talking about the YouTube channel?
They're brilliant, man. Yeah, they're fucking brilliant. Like, watch their stuff. I love creators.
I know about Corridor Digital.
By the way, this is why I hate politics, because like my politics obviously is kind of right wing, and it just puts me at odds with all of these creators. And some of them have me fucking, not the Corridor Digital guys, but like some of these other guys have me fucking blocked on X, and I'm like, God damn it! Like, can you guys chill for a moment? Because like I don't give a shit about politics to that extent. Holy crap, you know.
So going back to the conversation,
the way I discovered that channel was through. You guys remember the video "The Glitch" from Corridor Digital?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was how I discovered them.
I actually discovered them via like a VFX breakdown because I used to, they did a lot of those, and I was like always interested as to how movies were actually being made so I can understand why it costs so much to make them. And I was like, that's really nice. A lot of their shorts was then something that I watched later on, as well as other creators. There are a lot more creators that make these really cool shorts than someone like this Corridor Digital. There are others. What's the Asian guy's name again? I fucking forgot his name. He's the one who made the Super Hot.
Oh, I know who he is. Yeah.
He's the guy trolled Super Hot.
Yeah. He made a Super Hot.
He did other things. Rocket Jump. That's what it's called. Sorry. It just came out of Rocket Jump. I think the YouTube is called Rocket Jump.
I like the fact that the Super Hot guys, the actual developers, actually worked with them on that, right? I mean, that's beautiful, man. It was great. Group of creators from like Europe. And then that guy, and then they make this thing, and it's like, if it wasn't for his short, his movie based on Super Hot, who would even know about that video game, right? Like this is like
this is pure collaboration. I didn't even know the fucking. I thought it was some sort of troll. So like later I turned, I was like a video game. I was like, oh hey, I didn't know that. Didn't end up playing it again, but I was like,
That's a good video game too.
yeah.
So I did want to go back to the conversation about AI and the creation kits, because one of my favorite things that people made with those creation kits from Bethesda was like more Oblivion and Skywind, right? They remade the old games using the new engines. And that concept, I think, is something that could be really cool with AI. Like if you could take Super NES Link's Awakening and recreate it as a three-dimensional world, and you've got a whole new Zelda game to play, essentially, using this game that everybody loves, or everybody who's played it loves. It might be.
I think that'll happen a lot. You're gonna have like remastered, redone.
Yeah, it will happen. Have you played? Since we're talking about Bethesda, did you see that a group of modders based in England, they made this game called Fallout London? It actually is as good, not as polished, but as good as Fallout 3 and Fallout 4. It is as long as well. It's crazy. It's got like 5 different factions, a whole story behind it, cutscenes, voice acting, and this is what the community can create. So like, I haven't played Fallout 4 in probably a few years, but when I saw that came out, I was like, you know what? I'm going to download it again, and I'm going to install this thing. And a whole bunch of people did as well, right? And it's like they continue to improve it with like bug fixes and all that stuff. And that is what keeps the game alive. And you can even say the same thing about Stalker, right? If you've ever played, Stalker 2 is out. It's a pretty great game. But this Ukrainian game, Stalker, right? No one really knew about it, but then people started seeing, YouTubers playing like modded versions of it, because there's like this huge modding community behind Stalker where they recreate different maps, or like they add a whole bunch of like iterative things that improve on the original game, and it's like this massive community. I mean, Escape from Tarkov is more or less like inspired by Stalker because of that, right? Huge game. And it is that iterative process that enables them to do that. Now, you don't really see this very much of, say, Assassin's Creed or any of the other properties that people are doing, because like they're kind of assholes about cracking down on this stuff, right? But except for Watch Dogs 2, Watch Dogs 1, for some reason, Ubisoft has not cracked down on it. So, what's interesting about Watch Dogs, I don't know if you know, probably don't, but is they managed to unlock, like these modders managed to unlock a whole bunch of features that the developers made for the original Watch Dogs, but never fully implemented. So if you actually play the game now and you download all these mods, like you can actually improve the way it looks, you can improve the lighting, the AI, the combat system. They even added gangs to it. It plays like a completely new game. That's how impressive the original Watch Dogs was. It was kind of ahead of its time, and I'm so happy that Ubisoft has not decided that they were going to crack down on it or something, also the big reason for why people don't mod Assassin's Creed is because it has a stupid online component, because they want to sell shit to people, right? They do this whole skin thing, like if you want to, you have to pay real money to like change the way the character looks in Assassin's Creed, every single one of the recent ones, and even the older ones. People don't mod that because it's too fucking hard to edit. And they added an unnecessary boundary that prevents people from making Assassin's Creed better. I mean, how stupid is that, honestly, right? You don't have the problem with Cyberpunk 2077, which CD Projekt Red, in their actually really brilliant ways, decided they were going to release a modding kit. And so now we're seeing like these huge mods come out for Cyberpunk 2077 that change the way the game plays. Like even the complete base game, if you watch some YouTube channels, it's like the Matrix.
CD Projekt Red is kind of like that as well. They don't have any DRM on any of the games they make, and they run GOG, where the games don't have DRM either.
Good example of
That's correct, yeah. They added a John Wick mod. Like some guys made a John Wick mod with like ultraviolence mode in it, and so the game just doesn't play like Cyberpunk anymore. It actually plays like a John Wick movie, and it's got all the animations and all the stuff that people made themselves, right, on their own free time. And like if you want to replay Cyberpunk and you've played it, say you spend 100 hours in it, and you would spend 100 hours more, get that mod. It plays completely differently. The whole combat system has changed to the point where everything is a one-hit kill, right? And it has like all these gun kata moves in it. Like, that is not Cyberpunk anymore, and some people don't like that. They're like, yeah, this is not Cyberpunk. It's like, yeah, that's the whole point. It's a completely new game. And that's the beauty of mods. So I imagine if they were like Fox and like, yeah, you can't edit this game, we'll sue you. This wouldn't exist. People wouldn't even be talking about it. Nintendo is pretty bad about the trademark stuff.
Yeah.
they're fucking dicks about it.
Hey, you just wanted this thing that nobody cares about and hasn't heard about for years, but now they hear about it again because of you. Oh, well, that's right. Get fucked. No reason. Yep.
There's absolutely no one selling this ROM, selling this game anywhere. But if you download a ROM of it, we'll come after you.
If you play a YouTube video of yourself, playing it, they'll come after you as well. Like they used to, remember when they used to actually sue people for posting video game footage?
Yes.
Of their titles?
That was funny.
If it was not authorized footage, yeah, you could share the trailer, no problem, right? But if you shared a clip of yourself playing it, they'd fucking sue you. It's like,
So
what the fuck?
I will say Nintendo is actually okay to work with if you reach out to them in advance. They're not always willing to let you do whatever you want, but they're a little more lenient. Like, I can't get into specifics, but I know they are.
It's still too hard, though. I mean, it's still too harsh, right? I feel they're not very nice about it. You have to ask for permission, and people don't like asking for permission, right? If you're a creator and you are making this, YouTube video, it really stinks to have to email them and be like, "Hey, can we do this thing?" Nobody wants to do that.
It takes a long time, and there are multiple conversations that need to be had. And if you're just making a YouTube video, it's not worth it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's frustrating. Like I know a lot of well, I don't know them personally, but I see a lot of YouTubers like to do the whole retro community, right, with TVs and stuff, and they want to do some weird stuff with Mario, and yeah, they have to. The whole process of having to email Nintendo and ask them for permission to use certain clips is just super fucking annoying.
It's interesting how
they should make it as easy as possible.
How Pal World gets away with it through Pokemon.
They're being sued for it. Palworld is being sued for it. Yeah, and it's like to the point where I think they were delisted from the Tokyo Game Show because Nintendo decided it was going to flex its muscles and threaten the show if they were there, if they were presenting their game there. Yeah, because Nintendo, I haven't followed the case too closely, but from what I understand is Nintendo never actually, trademarked or copyrighted the concept of Pokemon, right? So the idea of like throwing an egg at something and then having them battle each other, that was not a concept that they, bothered to copyright. But since Palworld, made a whole bunch of money and is really, really successful now, while they were litigating against Palworld, they filed some new trademarks of these very concepts while that was happening. I mean, that is, if anything, is pretty bad because they're essentially saying, yeah, this is we made the idea of it, and now we're copyrighting it, or now we're trademarking it before, after the litigation. Dude, that's.
So yeah, I do want to talk a little bit about the distinction between copyright and trademark because I think that's something people commonly get tripped up on. So copyright actually, like default, when you publish something, there's a copyright in it. There's a way to register your copyrights, but you don't have to claim copyright in material that you've published. Trademark is a separate thing where it's like you've got a word like your company name or something you want to put on a logo, a mark that you want to put on your product essentially, and you can get that registered as your trademark, and then you can enforce that against other companies that use similar or confusing marks. But I guess what I'm trying to say though is that Nintendo did have a copyright in Pokemon because they published it, but those like copyright only protects you as far as like the specific exact thing that you publish. More broad protection would come from things like either a patent where you can take like a process or an invention that you've come up with, or a trademark where, like I've discussed, where you've got kind of that broader concept, that mark that you want to protect and protect your brand with. Sense?
Yeah, sorry, that makes sense. Like Google is a trademark, but the product itself is copyrighted. Yeah.
But then, you look around the world, nation to nation, every copyright's different. So, US copyright, there's no such thing as an international copyright law. The US copyright's different to what it would be in Europe.
Yeah, and I should disclaim, my answer was US only. I'm not speaking about other countries.
Yeah, there's a lot of litigation going on with this stuff. With, for example, the word Photoshop, right? I think they've tried to enforce their trademark in this instance. But when people said, I'm going to Photoshop that, I think Adobe actually sued.
They Kleenexed themselves.
That's what happened to Kleenex too. When your product is so ubiquitous, the brand name becomes the name for the product. You can lose your trademark.
Xerox. Another thing, right? People say Xerox pretty ubiquitously instead of saying
Band-Aid.
copy printing or whatever. Yep. Funny thing, you remember Notch, right? The guy who made Minecraft. He made a game called Scrolls a long time ago, right? Scrolls is a card game. It's kind of like Hearthstone. He called it Scrolls, and Bethesda's lawyers got super pissed off because they had a game called Scrolls. Like, they were working on it. That was like the Elder Scrolls or whatever, right? Yeah, the Elder Scrolls. So he actually got sued over that for the Mojang got sued over the use of the word scrolls, and I think eventually they came to some sort of agreement, and a lot of people took the side of him, obviously, but it made sense in that instance because they had to defend their trademark, because if scrolls become so, if they don't even bother to defend it, then anyone else can do it. It would set a terrible precedent. So I understand where, trademark law comes in. Sometimes it's extremely necessary to just step up and say, yeah, this thing sounds like it's a video game and it's called the same thing as ours, so you got to change the name because we value this thing and you don't want to dilute it or change the name.
Well, and it also generally, generally, I mean, when that happens, what the companies are, so usually what happens is there are two, so most of the time, and I don't know if this is the case with the Minecraft Scrolls thing, but most of the time there's a filing with the USPTO, and then the bigger fish decides they're going to object to the filing, right? So it's not like they're suing you for a trademark infringement, which is like a full federal trial and real pain in the neck to do. But what they're doing, it's essentially a federal trial, a small one, but it's a slightly different proceeding, and it's limited to that particular filing. The reason that big companies do that is twofold. One of them is sometimes they'll just like chase the little guy off of their turf, and they'll abandon the mark and they'll change the name. In most cases, or a lot of cases, I'm not sure it's most, but in a lot of cases actually, what will happen is they'll enter into something called the coexistence agreement. So what they'll do is they'll say, listen, you agree that this is our mark and you're never going to challenge our use of the mark, and you're not going to file for it except, maybe we'll let this one through, but usually they don't let in any filings at all. And they get a contract in place so that if there's a problem down the road, they can turn around and say, listen, we defended our mark. This person's using it with our permission, right? And permission is one of those things that tends to show that you haven't abandoned it and that it hasn't been diluted. So it's usually a bullying tactic, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's some kind of coexistence agreement that was signed in that instance.
Yeah. Makes sense. I think everything should be free, DRM free in particular, because that is just shit. There's a really good quote from Warren Spector. Warren Spector's the guy who made Deus Ex and System Shock and Ultima, all these games, right? He's not Richard Garriott, but yeah, he made some of the Ultima games. He said that anyone who complains about piracy is full of shit. Because if they were not going to buy a product in the first place, what makes you think that they're going to do it if you add DRM to it? And that's a damn good point.
I think when we go and explore the cosmos, intellectual property is going to become really irrelevant, because if you're trying to scrape an existence like out on the surface of Mars, like, and some asshole invents a widget and then says, oh, I want to patent that because it's really valuable for converting this mineral into oxygen, like, you're just going to toss the guy out of the airlock before you start paying him a fee,
Yeah. It's such a, how do you call it? It's such an inconsequential concept, right? The idea of copyright infringement. The only reason we bother with it is because we are so, pampered to the point where we are able to take issue with stuff like this. I don't think, China or Russia particularly care these days because of the sanctions and the wars, and you see them ripping off wholesale, right? A lot of American concepts, a lot of American patents, because, who the fuck cares? We're trying to win something. So when that happens, when you're in a situation where it is do or die, you're not going to, China's not going to sit back and say, yeah, we're not going to take this cool concept of, this technology that you've patented. No, we're just going to take it. We're just going to take it and we're going to do something with it.
Yeah.
because it doesn't matter anymore. Why should they be hung up over some simple copyright or a simple trademark or a patent when it's an idea? How the fuck the whole patent system in general, I think is it's a good concept. You don't want people to infringe upon your inventions. You don't want them to make money out of what you came up with. But at the same time, it is sometimes necessary. If you look back at the 1800s, you'll see that a lot of British patents were infringed upon by the Americans. They stole these ideas. This is a thing that America used to do back in the day. They stole a lot of these ideas that the British invented, and they created products out of it. Because why the fuck should they even bother, dealing with the British, whom they were at war with for a very long time, like in late 1700s? Why should they worry about these patents? Like, fuck that, let's make cool guns and cool cannons and cool technologies that the British have come up with and use it to our own benefit. We're at war with this country. Why do we respect them? So if you actually look at the early filings, there's some pretty good, YouTube videos on this and sites you can read on early U.S. patents. They were essentially British patents just ripped off.
I think that there are a lot of people, particularly in the libertarian sphere, who think that intellectual property should just be abolished. And I used to think that those arguments were extreme, but we're coming into an era where the machines are going to be doing a ton of inventing all by themselves. And if the humans who are running those machines are just being like, oh, cool, this machine just went and helped me invent this process, right? And it did 10,000 years of engineering in an afternoon. And so now I'm going to go file a patent for it because it helped me get to that point. If we allow the IP system to continue, it's just going to slow us down, right? It served some purpose 100 years ago when you wanted to encourage people to go invent stuff instead of, going and farming or conquering the East Indies, right? And it's actually, we need to incentivize people to invent steam engines instead. And this is the way that we're going to do it. But invention and brain power is just about to become unlimited, right? So anything that prevents brain power from doing what brain power does and coming up with new ideas, I think is really going to slow us down. So I think that they may have had a point, those people who want to just abolish all IP, and I'm starting to come around to it.
They do. I mean, there's a reason why you don't see certain concepts in video games as often as you should, because they have been patented. Here, and I can pull out a pretty egregious example. It is this video game called Shadow of War, Shadow of Mordor. It's a Lord of the Rings based game, right? That Warner Brothers created, Warner Brothers and Monolith. And this game is a really cool concept in that there's this thing called a rival system. So when you're fighting regular mobs, you're like this character and you're killing all these orcs, these Uruk-hai. You can develop enemies, and so if if you find a small boss monster and he kicks your ass, he's going to level up and he's going to become your rival. Okay, so throughout the game you might be hunting him or he might be hunting you. He just gets more and more powerful. You can kill him, but Uruk-hai come back from the dead, and so he'll level up, and you'll see that he's got cut marks on his chest where you stabbed him. Right, it reflects the things that you've done to him. So there's little stories that are being developed as you play the game. It's a really cool system, and the whole idea is that these characters that you kill early on or that you're defeated by early on, because again you can die and then you come back to life, they will follow you throughout the game, and that becomes your whole experience. Now you might be wondering, this is a really cool concept. Why hasn't any other game implemented this feature? It's really cool. Imagine if you would have put this in a roguelike game, like a little monster that you fought in say when you first started. Later on becomes this.
Did they actually file a patent for that? That's wild.
They did. Yeah, they filed a patent for it. That's the reason why you don't see it.
That is wild. Yeah. I mean, wow. That's wow. That's amazing. It's a dick move, but it's wow. That's wow. Jeez.
There's another stupid concept that is maybe not quite as palatable, but is, mini games. Why don't you see mini games in loading screens? Well, Sony owns a patent for it. Really? Nobody wants to pay it. Yeah. That's why you don't see mini games being played in loading screens. Sometimes loading screens can be kind of long.
Which game has Sony used it in?
They have not. They've not used it in any game. They just fucking file a patent for it. And no one wants to pay it.
Asshole.
Yeah.
I think there
Like,
should be,
you know,
there
I
should
mean-
be a rule as well, at least as we have patents, which is if you don't use the patent, you don't get to keep it.
Yep. It's really onerous when you file a patent for something that is, you know, that's a concept that's really cool. That's, you know, maybe it's implemented to varying degrees, but people should be allowed to innovate on that idea. And for the most part, you know, most ideas in video games are not patented. The idea of a roguelike, which was, you know, created by Rogue, the original Rogue, is not patented. The idea of Metroid has not been patented. You know, Metroid is pretty simple, right? It's like Castlevania and Metroid. You start as a pretty lowly basic character, and then you attain new skills, and then you know, are able to traverse the environment better. Like places that have been locked off or previously unreachable, say they are, you have to get like the climbing ability to unlock a certain, you know, area. That has not been patented, and thank God for that. Imagine if they patented it, and Metroid was the only game that did that. There would be no Dark Souls. There would be no, you know, any game that's out right now, really, right? Any RPG just wouldn't exist if some idiot patented that idea ages ago. Or the idea of leveling up, you know, like I think maybe Gauntlet invented the idea of leveling up, like in the 79 or 1980s or something. Imagine if they patented the idea of leveling up. You wouldn't have Path of Exile. You wouldn't have Diablo. You wouldn't have RPGs.
Limiting.
You can't let people patent these ideas, and I think the big problem is judges sometimes who are not really familiar with the medium in which they are, you know, adjudicating. They have no idea what they're doing, right? And so they will be like, "Yeah, I'll go ahead and file this patent. It's fine." So you have to have really good lawyers defending or fighting against the patent itself, because otherwise you're going to have this. Oh, it's a unique idea. We came up with it. So, you know, like it's an idea. How the hell do you patent an idea? Honestly, the idea of a patent system is just stupid to me.
Well, it needs to be more than just an idea. You need to be able to describe with a certain level of specificity exactly what sort of process or invention you've come up with. It doesn't have to be exact. Like, you can definitely leave yourself wiggle room in your patent to fine tune your invention or for some variation, but they're not going to approve just like very general ideas.
Yeah. Some cases they do, and that's where you get this nonsense, right? Where someone will patent an idea of how to display images on a web browser. Right, they won't even invent the language to do that. They'll just say, here's the idea that, you know, putting images on a web browser is a patent that they come up with, or the patent of the email. I think that's been in litigation for a long time, where someone decided that, oh, I'm going to come up with this idea of an email. I'm going to have some proof of concept, and I'm going to file it, and it's granted. And so from now onwards, you have to pay me.
Have you noticed that no other site other than Amazon has a buy now button? They all have an add to cart button.
Yep. Why is that? Because do they have a patent for it? What? Really? Come on. Wow. Of all things.
Yeah, I think there have definitely been some growing pains with respect to tech and IP law. I don't think courts are well acquainted enough with all of the concepts, and I think video games kind of fall into a similar category where it's like, yeah, you've got this idea that sure, it's specific enough to patent, but then like, what else are people going to need your idea for to build on, to build their own stuff? And it seems like it plays out in a way that's very unfair because, like you said, I mean, people will get their patent for some super general thing, like how to display images on a website. And then it's like, okay, well, how can anybody else build a website without that? So I see what you're saying about some of these tech cases.
Decided that they were going to patent the concept of bullet time. I mean, bullet time is cool, right? It freezes time, and then the camera pans around the main character.
I mean, they could have patented it for sure, but other people have already done it. This is actually taken out of some Chinese kung fu movies as well. There's actually a movie that had the exact scene that Neo performed there. They had that exact scene in another movie. I actually saw it.
Interesting.
So bullet time was around.
There's prior art.
Yeah. They just made it look better and mainstream and such, yeah. So it's not taking it away, not taking away any value from the Wachowskis. They're the ones who made it look super cool, like really cool. Yep, like that was all different. much higher quality. It looked like concept.
like Remedy.
The original thing looked like concept art that you would have. You know, like for movies when you're about to make a scene, you actually make concept art to kind of like see whether or not it will look good at all, and then you could discard it because it's just minimal effort if you didn't want it. But if you keep it, then it kind of like this looks like concept art actually in comparison to what the Wachowskis later made.
I think bullet time in video games, slowing down time and then doing like a sideways dodge or something, that was first made by Remedy in the video game Max Payne.
Yes,
I'm so glad they didn't patent it.
Great game.
Yeah, you wouldn't have Super Hot. You wouldn't have a lot of games nowadays that actually use that same feature. Like you wouldn't have Fear, right? Fear is this great FPS in the 2000s where you can freeze time and shoot off like a million bullets at something. But that's a cool concept, and I'm glad they didn't patent it because they were the first to make it. And it's used to great effect nowadays, where I think literally every other FPS uses it. Even Call of Duty uses it, where there's this, in the campaign there's these slow-mo instances where everything freezes, and then there's like 5 guys in a room, and you've got a gun with 5 bullets in it, and you got to shoot all 5 of them, right? Otherwise you die. Yeah, it's like cool moments like that can't be done if some idiot patented it. This is why I don't like the broad patent system, which enables some very bad creators to say this is our idea and you're not allowed to use it anymore. Like Warner Brothers.
The
rival
good
system.
news is, like in the next 5 to 10 years, everything that used to be is gonna break, including IP law. Like it's all just, and like particularly with copyrights. So the U.S. Copyright Office, and sorry if someone's already said this, I had to step out and walk the dog, so I might have missed a little bit. But the U.S. Copyright Office has stated that anything that's created by AI is not copyrightable subject matter in the United States. So it's dope, because that means that if you create an AI short and then someone else turns around and makes a derivative work of what you've created, because the original work wasn't copyrightable, the subsequent derivative work isn't going to infringe the copyright, right? So that's particular. And if you run it through AI,
all you have to do is edit the AI.
Hold on. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. What if it's like a mix of things? Or some of it AI, some of it not?
Yeah, so the work as a whole, right, could be copyrightable, but the individual AI pieces aren't necessarily copyrightable.
Right. So kind of like how Winnie the Pooh, without the red shirt, entered public domain, but the version with the red shirt is still copyrighted, right?
So like if you took the public domain version of Winnie the Pooh, right, and you made you took that image, right, and you ran it through AI and you put it on the cover of your new children's book, Winnie the Pooh Goes Quantity Surveying, right, and ran it, because the new, even if you, let me think. Well, so that's not quite the same. Right?
So Winnie the Pooh has entered public domain, but the one where he's wearing a red shirt specifically, that one is still owned by Disney.
Okay.
Right.
Well, then that one might still be owned by Disney, and so you can't make derivative works. But like, if something's, so I think my point was a little different about AI. So if something's in the public domain, then like that's it. Like you can go exploit. I think someone made a horror movie starring Mickey Mouse, like that was slated for release on Copyright Day, when it's like I can't remember.
No, it's not. It wasn't Mickey Mouse. It was it's Winnie the
Willy. No, was it Winnie the Pooh?
There's a Winnie the Pooh movie.
It was Winnie the Pooh.
It's a Winnie the Pooh movie.
It might have been Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah.
Sorry, it might have been Winnie the Pooh. But like one of the two like beloved cartoon characters on their Copyright Day, someone's like, "Yeah, we're gonna make a slasher movie starring this character."
My question is,
it's so unoriginal.
My question is, right, following that same logic where Winnie the Pooh is now copyright free, it's entered public domain, and but the Winnie the Pooh with the red shirt, that one is still copyrighted. If you take an image that's AI generated and you modify it, is that now still in the public domain, or is the modification you've made copyrighted?
If you take an AI image, right, that is, let's say I just go to Grok, right, and I say, Grok, create a cartoon character called, Adrian the Marmot, right? And it's just like I'd make Adrian the happy marmot, and it spits out this image based on whatever, right? So Adrian the marmot is a happy-go-lucky marmot who lives in the mountains and likes flying to space. He's an advanced scouting party for the Marmot Star Empire, the interstellar, marmot, galaxy spanning, nation, and they're planning an invasion fleet so they can eat all of our tomatoes, right? So this is the children's book about Adrian, the marmot from outer space. And let's say I then just type it all in, bang, I get my AI book. That's not copyrightable. If, however, I wrote the story myself, right, and I said, one day there was Adrian, the happy marmot. He was a marmot from outer space. He was part of an advanced, elite scouting party sniper team from, the Marmot home planet, Marmota Prime, sent to Earth to do whatever. And then I illustrate the book, right? And then the illustration is AI generated, but I came up with the text. The text is copyrightable subject matter. The illustration is not. The work as a whole, combining the two, is, but the individual AI generated imagery is not. So someone could turn around and they wouldn't be able to say, okay, well, we're going to take the story about Adrian, the space marmot from Marmota Prime with his marmot spaceship, demanding the nations of the world hand over their tomatoes. That the written stuff they wouldn't be able to appropriate until it entered the public domain or it was licensed to them. But the artwork they could, right? So they could make Adrian the Marmot T-shirts. They could make Adrian the Marmot NFTs. They could make Adrian the Marmot, Pogs. I don't know what the kids are trading these days, or cards, or whatever else. Right. So like, right. They could make some, I think I just dated myself with that. But yeah, they could make like Adrian the Marmot Pogs or Adrian the Marmot trading cards with the artwork, right? Because the artwork itself was generated by AI rather than by a human hand.
But if you were to take an AI artwork and never publish that work, only publish the modified work, that work would be copyrightable. You wouldn't be able to just steal that and copyright it. If you edit the AI work and there is a human involved in the final product, then that is copyrightable.
Well, then, yeah, if you make something with your own hand, that is copyrightable. So if I suppose if you traced an AI artwork,
you don't even trace it. You can just take a photo editing program and play with the image a little bit, and that's
or if you took a picture of it, right?
I'm just gonna add one pixel.
If you took a picture of it, right? When you take the picture of the AI work, you've created
then you own it,
which is the photograph. So technically, I guess you could do that, but like that's generally. I mean, and you could say that the picture is the copyrightable work. I don't know. I think if you modified it and you sort of added if you drew, let's say it spit out a purple marmot, and you drew a marmot and you said this marmot is very similar to it. It looks. This was just inspiration, but I've drawn my own marmot and it's red, right, wearing a yellow polka dotted T-shirt. Then I think the new work is yours, and that's copyrightable. But I think if you took a photo of an AI work and you're like, haha, I took a photo of it, and so you'd have the copyright in the photograph. But the question is, would you have the copyright in the design of the marmot?
Yeah,
and I think the answer is no.
I agree with that 100%. I think it gets more interesting when you take an AI work, like you take something from Midjourney and you open it up in MS Paint and you just add a couple things, or you just change one of the product of AI. You're publishing
a mixed product, yeah. So, but that's
the transformative work.
As soon as you reduce something to tangible form, right, and that could be on any medium, right, including a database. So the minute you take your MS Paint and you draw the line on the marmot, like the line that you drew, that's yours, right? That's copyrighted.
Well, so not only that, but it takes the whole image that you're publishing, not just the line, but the underlying.
Could. I think they could, because you didn't actually have a copyright in the underlying image. So, let's say it's a marmot with a purple shirt.
Yeah, they could go to Midjourney. They could go to Midjourney's database and download it.
Well, I don't think because I don't actually have copyright in the rest of it. Now, query how much you could separate it. If it's a marmot in a purple shirt and I paint over it so it's a marmot in an orange shirt, and then someone says, actually, I'm going to have a marmot in a red shirt, right? And you're saying, okay, well, actually, the copyrighted work is the combination of these two things, and by putting a red shirt on it instead of an orange shirt, it's not sufficiently distinguishable. It's just a derivative work of mine because it's the same T-shirt.
Look at it as it would look at any derivative of a copywritten work. But the thing that you publish, if it's in Midjourney and there's a public database where somebody can pull the AI product, I agree, that's fine. But if the image itself has not been published as an AI image anywhere else, and you're only publishing your edited image, you have full copyright in that image.
No, because the copyright doesn't come into creation when you publish. It comes into creation when you put it down to paper, or when you put it on the database. So it springs into being the moment it's created.
Well,
and so
it depends on how you're creating it, though, right? Like, and so once you've saved your MS Paint version of the AI work to the database, right? That's your copyright in that image. That image can't just be copied by somebody else. I mean, they can do a transformative work to the extent that we've talked about how that doesn't violate.
And they can remove all the AI generated pieces, right? So if they could cut out the T-shirt and they could just say, this is, the Marmot, and we've removed all of the pieces that were put on by somebody else.
Okay, so imagine I generate the AI image on my computer. I don't upload it anywhere.
Yep.
I modify it, and I upload the modification on the internet.
How do you? So what image? Let's paint a picture for everybody. What image have you generated?
Let's say a snowman.
A snowman. Okay. What's the snowman wearing?
Snowman's wearing a jacket.
Is he wearing
black
a scarf?
jacket? Black jacket, no scarf.
Okay. Is he wearing a hat?
No.
No. Does he have a carrot for a nose?
No. He has a tomato.
He has a tomato for a nose. Okay, interesting choice. So you've got this tomato. You've got this snowman. The snowman he's got two arms. Conventional snowman.
Yes.
Does he have little buttons? Did you take some rocks and make some buttons down the middle of his torso?
No.
No. Okay. So you got a snowman. He's got no hat. He's got a tomato for a nose. He's wearing a jacket, and he's also wearing a scarf. What color is the scarf?
No, he's not wearing a scarf.
Not wearing a scarf. Okay, you said he was wearing a scarf. We're going to throw out the scarf. So he's just wearing a jacket. What color?
No, I didn't. I said he's not wearing a scarf.
Okay, sorry.
Black jacket.
Black jacket. Okay. So you got your snowman on a black jacket with a tomato nose, and you generate that with AI. Boom. We've got our snowman. Now what do you do?
Now I take the snowman and I add legs to it. But I've done that.
How do you add legs to a snowman? How's that happening?
Because I wanted to walk, I just add legs to it.
Okay, so in Photoshop, you add legs?
Yeah. Yes. Right.
Okay.
But I don't tell anyone or show anywhere that I've generated this using AI. It's generated on my computer. And I post this on the internet, the fucking snowman with legs.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
How would someone know what part of the snowman is AI generated and which part of it was done by me? Right. Well, if they make any modifications to that, they're probably infringing on my copyright because they don't know what the original image was.
No, but if you want to go drag it into court, and then someone will do, and I'll bet there's going to be a whole cottage industry in this when people file copyrights on AI generated work, and then they try to assert the copyright against someone. And as a lawyer, I go, okay, cool. Show me the chain of custody. How did that file get created? You've got this song that sounds like it's like Conway Twitty, recording a song by Snoop Dogg, G's up, Ho's down, but with Conway Twitty singing it. Can I talk to the singer who sang that for you? Can you tell me where you recorded it and what studio you did? You're asserting you own the copyright, so I assume you created the recording. So you want to tell me where everyone is who is involved in its production? And if you don't wind up producing all of those records in disclosure and discovery, it's okay, well, why haven't you? Oh, it's because you didn't actually convene a band that was Conway Twitty recording Eminem's greatest hits, or you didn't actually paint that snowman yourself. You didn't actually do that because you don't have a chain of title, or we look at the file and you can see what kind of file type it is, and you can tell that it wasn't generated by hand or generated by a camera or something like that. So there are ways that you can do forensics and dig down. I think a lot of people will try to file and say, listen, this is my created work. I did it myself. If you're doing that and the Copyright Office is saying, we're not going to recognize it because this isn't written by you, then when they're doing that, they're perjuring themselves, which is a little problem. And if you decide to bring a lawsuit on it, you're going to perjure yourself as well. So I don't think we're going to see a ton of that. I don't think we're going to see, maybe we will. Maybe we'll see copyright mills, going and saying, okay, well, this AI generated artwork because they changed one pixel in it, you've infringed their copyright, and the courts will have to adapt to that, and and lawyers will have to adapt to it. So, but like fundamentally, you are relying on the fact that people are going to be a little honest in order for like society to function, and that all this people aren't look at this and say, "Oh, I'm immediately going to just generate a bunch of AI stuff that's really compelling," and then the first thing I'm going to do if someone copies it or decides to make a meme out of it is like file a lawsuit. So that's kind of how I look at it.
So, in the case of AI-generated work subsequently edited or manipulated by a human in a sufficiently creative manner, the resulting work constitutes an original work that can be copyrighted. So I think the legal question is going to be whether those edits are sufficiently creative, and that is going to be a very subjective question that's going to result in a lot of litigation.
Yeah, I agree.
What about this claim that a lot of artists are making? They're stating that these AI models, right, they're pulling off of a lot of copyrighted work. Where's that going? I mean, is there any litigation on this happening?
There is actually. I believe OpenAI got sued by Getty, and I think they've also been sued by the New York Times. I could be wrong. I think Getty Images has sued a bunch of them, and I'm not an IP litigator, so I haven't spent a huge amount of time reading the lawsuits, but that's exactly right. And they're basically saying that when you train the model on the images, the result, right? So like they did one in one filing. There was like a picture of Lionel Messi or something playing football, and there was an exact image. And then they asked the LLM to produce that image, and it did nearly identically. And they're saying this is just copying; it's not original. I think the argument from the LLM operator's side is that this stuff is sufficiently transformative that it's not it's not copyright infringement, because what they're doing is they're querying this huge database of all possible images, coming up with something that's like a statistically probable result for the query, rather than saying it's copy line for line.
Yeah. Just looking at it from a human perspective, and sort of interrupt and continue, right, is that if I as an artist, right, I'm not an artist, but if I was an artist and you showed me enough images of Lionel Messi, and I took a sketch pad, or I took a photo editing program and actually drew it by hand. I drew Lionel Messi by hand using a Wacom tablet or whatever, right? I created an illustration of him based on my knowledge of this guy, right? Of this football player, based on, what I know of him. And I created this huge illustration. That's my illustration. I just drew Lionel Messi. I painted him in, and let's say I'm an amazing artist. And so it looks like a photograph, right? The person who took that photo, which I was inspired by, cannot say, "Oh, that belongs to me. You're infringing on my copyright." Right?
Remember that Barack Obama Hope poster from 10 years ago or 20 years ago? That was a tracing of a photograph by an independent artist, and of course, like that image was one of the iconic images of the campaign. It probably helped to get the guy elected. But it was a trace from a photograph that was taken by somebody else, and he got the shit suit out of him for it, and he lost. So it was. It's wild. So, but like with LLMs, the problem.
How the fuck do you lose that?
How do you lose it? Because it was copyright infringement under our rules.
Well, that's crazy because, as an artist, aren't you just inspired by things in general? I mean, if I were to draw, maybe not even trace something, right, but draw something by hand, right, and I draw an exact, maybe not an exact, but somewhat, a facsimile of a picture that I've seen before, or a scene that I've seen, right? Like, for instance, Trump, at a rally, right? Everybody knows what he looks like there. I draw it down, and then it just so happens to kind of look like a lot of the photos that the AP and Getty Images have taken of him. They can't sue me for that, right? Because this is a
session, and you're sitting there at the rally, you're drawing it,
so is it AI kind of the same thing?
Well, so
because AI is not stealing it, right? AI is not it's not tracing these photographs to create a new picture. It's actually learning what do these pictures look like. That's how LLMs work. They're not actually stealing other people's content. It's more like they're learning as to what these images look like, right? Couldn't you make that same argument on behalf of AI?
The problem is, it's not like you can go either way with this stuff. Like any piece of litigation, you go to a lawyer, you say, "What are my chances of winning?" Like they'll be like, it's a little better than a coin toss, or if you have a really strong case, maybe they'll say it's 60-40, right? So like there are always arguments that you can make either way. With this in particular, the question really isn't like which way do you argue it, one or the other. It's that the problem is that there is an argument to be had, right? And so I actually like what we need for this for LLMs is something like Section 230. But applicable for large language models. I have a proposal on that, Ian. I can flick it over to you that I wrote. Yeah, let me pull it up. I would
this seems like a job for Suram and David Sachs, right?
Yeah, it does sound like a job for David Sachs, actually. Hold on, let me just. But I don't want to like.
I know he's going to be in charge of AI policy.
David and I are mutual follows, and I don't want to like.
You should send it to him.
I don't want to bombard his inbox and be annoying. So, but
just fine.
He's a very busy man. I don't want to do that. So, as if running Craft Ventures isn't enough, he's also running the government. It's so I just sent you that link. But basically, so like you can. I don't know if you guys have a group you want to send it in. Feel free to circulate it amongst yourselves. But basically, the idea would be that you carve out bona fide use of LLMs in normal, ordinary practice, which is not specifically directed towards the deliberate infringement of someone's IP. And you say, we acknowledge that like LLMs and AI are on a direct collision course with copyright law, much like social media and the internet in the 90s was on a direct collision course with defamation law. And so what they did in the 90s is they made a policy choice. And it was Ron Wyden out in Oregon. And Ron Wyden said, listen, like, we got to get this internet thing up and running. So we're going to confer, this is actually a really interesting story. It involves Jordan Belfort and Stratton Oakmont, if you can believe it. The case was Stratton Oakmont versus Prodigy. And for those of us who remember Prodigy, this firm, Stratton Oakmont, they're a bunch of bad dudes. They're out there scamming people. And you're going to get in a lot of trouble if you do business with them. So don't. Stratton Oakmont lawyered up. They sued Prodigy for defamation, and there was a First Amendment defense, right? In a historic First Amendment defense, which came from an early case, which was called Cubby versus CompuServe. CompuServe was one of the other big ones. It was Prodigy, CompuServe, and later AOL was the big winner of all of the dial-up internet services. I was like 5 at the time, so obviously I remember this vividly. So the earlier case went the right way. The later case, the judge screwed it up and said, no, actually, Prodigy, you're liable for the content that this user posted on your website, even though you had no foreknowledge of the content, you didn't contribute to the content, you didn't even know it was there, but because it was on your website, because it was on your bulletin board, you were an editor, you were a publisher, and you're liable. And so this is like, it was like a nuclear bomb dropped on the internet. And Ron Wyden was like, shit, we got to put a stop to this right fucking now. So they enacted this rule called Section 230, which said basically that platforms aren't liable for what their users post on them, right? With some subject to certain limited exceptions like illegal pornography and IP infringement as it happens. And the reason was because defamation and social media were not compatible, right? And if we didn't do this and carve out that liability, and it's a broad liability. So like if someone sends you a defamatory statement and you forward it to somebody else, right? You're not liable for forwarding it because of the language of Section 230, right? Because it was someone else's statement, and Section 230 exempts providers and users, right, are not liable for the content of other parties who are so-called information content providers. So it's a really broad thing. LLMs, if we ask ourselves, where's the collision, right? Where, like, what obstacle are LLMs hurtling at 1,000 miles an hour? The answer is it's copyright law, and it's copyrights and patents, right? So soon AI engineers are going to be inventing shit. Patents are in the way. Soon, right now, LLMs are producing works that are derivatives from copyrighted works. So one thing like the Pixar, obviously, like everyone's seen sort of like Pixar mashups that are like highly politicized. I think Midjourney had to like turn off, like if you put in Pixar, it would immediately deny the ability to do this because Disney Pixar had complaints about this. So like they're clearly being inspired by existing works, and you can tell these LLMs, listen, go draw from all of your knowledge of this existing body of art and produce something for me which is like that, which is hugely transformative. We don't have like the statutory rule, which you can fall back on and say, listen, this is the affirmative defense. Congress made a policy decision, and LLMs are exempt, right? That's unless you're deliberately trying to infringe someone's IP for purposes of monetary gain, like that's a problem. Now what the case now is that, like, if you send in a query and the LLM returns it to you and it's got an image on it which is infringing, that's an infringement, right? And it's an infringement by you, it's an infringement by the LLM provider. And I just don't think that's sustainable. So we basically need a Section 230 for AI.
Yeah, we do, because we don't want, patent trolls coming in and saying, hey, I patented that idea, and suing shit out of people. Because, patent trolls are a huge fucking problem. They just have these ideas, which may or may not be good, and they're extremely broad, and then they're gonna, claim that they own something.
There are copyright trolls too, and they're like, the patent trolls are one thing, because like at least to do patent law, you have to be smart, which is why I don't do it. But like copyright law, you can be an absolute idiot and you can be a copyright troll. And so what happens is they'll like find an image. One of my clients is a social media company, and they'll send a like strongly worded letter being like, this is infringing, blah, 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 blah. And you'll just kind of like, okay, yeah, 2, 3, 4 emails. And the emails will become progressively more unhinged. And they'll just be like, listen, guys, like I really appreciate the correspondence. Like you just drag it out just to fuck with them. And then you'll just go, listen, guys, like this is great, but like, did you send a DMCA takedown request at any point? I don't seem to recall having received one of those. And we're registered with the DMCA. So, and then they'll be like, well, there's an argument that social media companies aren't registered with the DMCA, don't have to, and they'll come up with some bullshit. They'll just be like, yeah, whatever, fuck you. So if you get a DMCA takedown request, those are the Digital Millennium Copyright Act is a real beast. And basically, if you run a social network and you have a copyrighted image on there and you get this takedown notice, you have to take it down pretty promptly. And then if someone's a repeat infringer, you have to ban them. So that's a pretty robust rule. But like if someone sits there and starts screaming at you, some lawyer, and you haven't received the DMCA takedown notice, they can tell you about the infringement all they want. Like you're not on notice unless they send you a statement like in the prescribed form of Section 512C of the DMCA, which has an affirmation made under a penalty of perjury at the end of it, right, saying that they think that they're entitled to make the demand. And so there have been a number of times when you get these like dumbasses from the Higbee is the firm which is most well known for this, and they're just like super aggressive. It's super bogus. A lot of it's automated. They have like search engines that go and scrape websites to go find infringing imagery, which has been borrowed from one of their clients. So they're really not nice people.
I would love to see your proposal for AI immunity. I won't steal it, I promise.
No, I'll flick it over to you by DM right now. I call it the Fair Use Act. So, I mean, I have it open. I can read it. It's like good bedtime reading for everybody. So let's see if it's
also.
Yeah. So Anyway, the operative language you'll see in the post is subsection D, which says that no provider or user of an AI model shall be treated on any input to the AI model provided by another information content provider, and 2, any output of an AI model resulting in whole or in part from any input provided by another information content provider. So what that says is if you're running an LLM and someone else puts data in and that's infringing, right? You're not also infringing because they put it in. And moreover, if you put data out, you're not infringing, right, what you put out as a result, right, of what this other person put in. So it's really simple. It mirrors existing Section 230 pretty well. And so, yeah, any output resulting in whole or in part from an input provided by another information. So what you can't do there is you can't spin up your own LLM, run it locally, and then say, okay, I'm generating my own images here, right? So this does protect like third parties who are providing these services, and not, or for example, if you just like run your own LLM and you're like, listen, I want to take the entire back catalog of the Beatles, and I'm going to just generate Beatles music from it here on my desktop, right? And then I'm going to try to sell it, right? It's like Beatles 2.0. That's something that wouldn't work. However, right, if you just go to somebody else, if you go to OpenAI, you go to Grok, and you go to Grok Music, and you say, Grok, could you perform Yesterday, but again, I need Yesterday, but performed by Dr. Dre, please. Could you do that? And then I'm going to go post it on Twitter. Then what would happen is Grok wouldn't be liable for any infringement, right? Even though it's created this thing for you. And maybe, I guess, the Beatles could be like, hey, you weren't supposed to, record Yesterday with Dr. Dre and have a problem. It would go after you for it. But what it does is it places the liability for the infringement on the publisher, right? So the person who actually asked the AI to do the thing and then got the thing and then marketed and used the thing, which means that it's on the person who then said, listen, I want to AI create this. AI goes, sure, no problem. Boom. I create the thing. Then they take it and let's say they start going and commercializing it, right? That's copyright infringement. But the proper place, the proper person to go after in that scenario is not the AI model deployer. It's the user who's engaged in the unlawful commercial activity, which is infringing on the copyright. So what you do is you assign away and you tell the copyright holders, listen, it's not the AI model's fault, right? And we have a policy interest in making sure that the AI model is as capable as possible and responds as honestly as possible to user demands. Like, it's important because that's what we do in America. We have computing, we have technology that fucking works. And then what you do is you say, okay, go after the infringer, go after the end user, which is exactly how it works on social media with content. Like if I threaten someone on Twitter, if I say, you know what, I'm going to call my buddy who's a marmot alien and he's going to hit your house with an ion beam, post, right? like they're not going after X for that, right? They're not going after someone who quote tweets it for it. It says, oh, this Preston guy's nuts. He's talking about marmots vaporizing your house. No, they send the cops around to my house and they say, you posted a threat to get marmot aliens to vaporize someone's house. And you're going to be liable for that. Or if I defame someone, right? So if I, for example, say, oh, I don't know, I say that, I say Elon Musk is secretly, an alien lizard, right? And Elon doesn't like that, right? He doesn't go and sue X, right, for that. What he does is he sues me, right? He says, hold on a second, you said it, not the platform. So it's like, it just makes total sense to do that with AI as well. And I'm just really surprised that I haven't seen anything like, so Lawyer Cat and Ian, that post, in full disclosure, was sent to Mike Lee's office. And I talked with a bunch of his interns about it because I think I had a Twitter interaction with him and that was really positive. And I have a buddy who knows him. So I got put in touch with a bunch of, fresh-faced, bright-eyed interns in his office to go discuss it. But as far as I can tell, nobody's really proposed anything like this, which is this Section 230 for AI. I think because Section 230 was a bit of a political football for a long time, and because of Facebook and censorship and things like that. But obviously that's over now, right? Because Facebook's pivoting after X, and they didn't even bother. I don't know did you guys all see? I assume everybody saw Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah, I posted it.
I love how they just they're like, cool, so we're going to have community notes. They didn't call it give it its own brand name. Oh, we're going to have democratic comments or something like that. They're just no, community notes fucking works. We're just going to rip it straight from us and just call it the same thing. So because of that, I think Section 230, there's going to be a lot less political heat on it. So maybe what we do is we say, hey, we have the air cover now to go immunize the AI providers as well. Because everyone's like, oh yeah, immunity for social networks is good again because they've stopped trying to control people's political thought. So I don't know. I'm just riffing.
I'm curious what you think about the data sets that AI are trained on and what the implications are of IP rights there. Because it seems like kind of new territory to me. When I look at AI and I see it, using copyrighted works to create its own images, I'm like, well, that's like somebody going to the museum and going around looking at a bunch of art and then just deciding what art they want to make. But I don't know if legally that's exactly how it would play out. So I'm curious about your perspectives.
Yeah, I think legally, I mean, that's the whole problem, right? Is that it has done exactly that. It's gone over and ingested all of this copyrighted information, and it's spitting out answers which are trained on it. I think that like we have to make a policy choice at some point. We've got to decide: do we want this thing to really rip, or do we not? I think on balance, the answer is yes, we do, because if we don't, the Chinese are going to let it rip, and then one day we're going to wake up and there's going to be a swarm of drones in the sky, and that's not going to be a pleasant outcome for us.
Yeah, he is not holding China back.
Yeah, they don't give a shit. They want to win, and like the question is, do we want to win? If the answer to that question is yes, then we should just be like, cool, full fucking send, like. Let her rip. Let's get as much AI as we can, as quickly as we can, and try to be, as nimble as we can and keeping on top of it. But like, it's a winner take all game. If we lose it all.
Well, this is the issue in Europe, right? They have so many regulations that effectively curtail the means of any of their industries from innovating because of, it's pure insanity, right? They don't realize they're living in a competitive environment and they purposely hamstrung themselves.
Europe is nuts. I mean, like, I tried to, God, hiring people in Europe is a nightmare. Like, particularly in Germany. Germany's bad. France is bad. England is not as bad as the continent, but it's still quite bad. I don't think it's like they don't have any awareness, right? It's because you go over there and you talk to people and they're walking around. It's almost like heritage pigs on a free range farm, right? They're just kind of like milling around, getting fat, like enjoying life, not really aware of what's going on. You go to London, there's not a whole lot of cognizance among the tech crowd there about AI. They're disconnected. And it's in London in particular, right, which generates something like 20% of Britain's GDP. Because like most of those countries, they've got like one big city, and then they've got a bunch of little like tiny satellite cities. But like there's one big town where all of the business is done. So in Germany, it's mostly Frankfurt, obviously France, Paris. In the UK, it's London. And like Edinburgh is like, a lawyer in Edinburgh gets paid £35,000 a year. Like they get paid nothing. It's not a big center of international commerce. So they're just not aware of what's happening here. The mood, and you can tell like by the Starmer regime and what they're doing. Like they're sitting there shuffling around deck chairs on the Titanic, and like the big political issue that they're grappling with isn't like, okay, cool, like we're entering this exponential era where everything's going to change. Like, how are we going to get ready for it? The big problem that they're talking about is like, oh, we cut winter fuel payments to pensioners because we don't have the money for it. And so,
and let's tax the shit out of farmers.
Let's tax the shit out of farmers and
20%,
and let's add 20% VAT to people sending their kids to private schools because they want to escape the state school system, which is terrible. And like,
it's also exit tax as well.
Yeah, and they're talking about exit taxes. Why? Because everybody's leaving. All the millionaires are leaving. So like they're sitting there looking at this huge, like this enormous opportunity, which is just like anyone in the United States or anyone who's like native to the internet, like sees it and is like kind of, I think it's amazing. I think it's a little bit frightening. It's a great time to be sort of like, late 30s, early 40s, and like working in tech. Like it's absolutely perfect time to be alive. And it's going to be exciting and wonderful and crazy and growth and all this other stuff. And the Europeans are sitting there being like, oh, like, our, we're issuing, government debt and it's at like 6% because our finances are a mess and we can't keep old people alive because they're freezing to death in the winter. Better build another windmill offshore. And like, it's just like, what the fuck is wrong with you people? Why don't you get that like you're strangling yourselves? And what you should do instead is just find every single bureaucrat, throw them into the North Sea and just like burn the rule book and say, hey, you know what we're going to do? For 10 years, tax rates are going to be low, right? 10%. And then what we're going to do is we're going to remove all regulations around technology, and we just want to go build. Just go build whatever you possibly can. Good luck. We'll see you in a decade. And like by the time that decade is done, England would be in such great position if they had just decided to become the Singapore of the North Atlantic, which they haven't, right? They've decided instead to become, they've decided to become the Yugoslavia of the North Atlantic, which is just like not a.
But the UK is so shit. Honestly, the only thing holding back the UK from getting worse was the EU.
Yeah, the EU is trash. And I say that as an EU citizen. So the EU is trash. It's anti-business. It's sclerotic. It's not. It's like
But even
I love
the EU, EU was better than the UK government. Like I had more faith in the EU than I did with the UK.
The EU politicians tend to be better dressed. The UK, particularly in the Labour Party, they get all their clothing bought from them by party donors, and then they like it's all like light gray suits and it always looks like shit. Like Ursula von der Leyen, say what you want about her, like she walks in somewhere, she's like dressed to the nines, or like Hollande or Macron, like they're all really well dressed. So you know, it's just like at least when they're
talking about.
Well,
I'm talking about how, at least in Europe, most of the policies are retarded, but at least sometimes they come out with something, and you're like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. With the UK, it's just nonsense after nonsense after nonsense. Nothing ever comes out that you sit down and you're like, you know what? That's actually a great thing that they did. At least with the EU, you can say that.
Well, I mean, I think it depends on what regulation. I think the EU got the crypto thing right. They've got a regulation called MiCA. They kind of went overboard, and they said that they moved all crypto asset sales and promotions into what's called the financial promotions regime, which means that it basically means that any time you're going to advertise a crypto asset for sale or talk about it in public, you have to get the communication signed off by an FCA regulated entity like a bank, which isn't going to do it unless you've done these really extensive investment disclosures. And if you don't do that, then you can go to prison for up to 3 years. So
typically with these fires, unfortunately, we never end up finding out what exactly started it. It depends on the area. There are a lot of cameras that are up in the mountain region able to track immediately the start of fire. They're smoke detection cameras. They help the LAF deploy resources quickly. So we'll see later on if they're able to look back and assess anything. Unfortunately, and we have no indication that this is the case yet, a lot of these fires end up being arson related. And so there will be an investigation into that because if you think about it, almost every single time we get one of these high wind warnings,
I have breaking news. Creek says it's from LA Fire Alerts. Creekside Structure Defense Group needs LASD lights for sirens and immediate evacuation. So if anybody has access to those types of resources, please contact them and try to do whatever you can to support them. Go ahead.
No, AZ, take over for 1 second. I'm just about to post something, or Inside or someone. I'll be right back in a second.
I got you. So apparently we don't have a full list. I'm working on it right now, trying to get a list of all of the areas that have been ordered to be evacuated so we can read them out to you. But the damage is pretty widespread. Rick, I don't know if you had your hand up, if you already spoke, if you want to go. And then I'm going to go to Anthony.
I just want to get into something real briefly here. Obviously, when there's an isolated fire in Southern California, oftentimes they'll call for mutual aid, and they get resources from surrounding municipalities sent their way. The problem here is that every municipality in Southern California is at risk. So you can't strip all the assets away from neighboring areas, because then that's going to put them really, really in a bind if fire happens where they're at. Another thing I want to mention is I'm seeing it in some other places where people are, like, I hate Governor Newsom. All right, I live in this state. I despise him. But in this case, I'm seeing people try and lay the blame at his feet for like mismanaging wildlands and stuff like that. Now, in the Paradise Fire, I will totally agree with that. But the only way that you could manage the type of coastal sage scrub and chaparral and soft chaparral vegetation that surrounds these urban areas is to just go in and burn it like every other year. And nobody has the political capital or the will to do that in Los Angeles. What we're seeing now is, as we've seen in wildfires across the West, urbanization gets into areas where it's not really as defensible as it should be in a fire situation. And so while I'd love to just I'd love to fault Newsom on this. I'm not saying that I can right now. The previous speaker who mentioned that the warning went out about a life-threatening event, I have never seen that in San Diego in all the years that I've lived here. And they just, we should go a little easy on that part. Pray for the responders.
So I'm looking at a map. Go ahead.
I'm having some issues with the audio.
I see Breaking 4 News just showed this. A statement has been made from President Biden.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Breaking.
Yeah, so President Biden, the lid has been lifted by the White House. For those of you just joining us, President Biden is actually in Los Angeles, and he's staying overnight there as these fires rage on. He just released a statement saying, quote, "I am being frequently briefed on the wildfires in West Los Angeles. My team and I are in touch with state and local officials, and I have offered any federal assistance that is needed to help suppress the terrible Pacific Palisades fire. Earlier tonight, FEMA approved a fire management assistance grant to support areas that are impacted and help reimburse the state of California for the immediate firefighting costs. My administration will do everything it can to support the response." He then urges residents to heed the warnings in Los Angeles, stay vigilant, and listen to local officials. Additionally, we have some breaking news out of Santa Monica. This is the first evacuation orders being issued from that city, and that's really significant. So let me read that to you right now. It was just shared with me City of Santa Monica is issuing an evacuation order for all areas of the city north of San Vicente. Immediate threat to life. This is a lawful order to leave now. The area is closed to public access. Earlier, about 2 hours earlier, we heard from Santa Monica, the city. They said at this point, no parts of the city were threatened by this fire. And just a short while later, we're getting confirmation that that an evacuation order has actually been issued. I'm going to try and pull up a map to see if I can get a better understanding of where all this is.
I wanted to let you guys know, shout out to one of our listeners, they DM'd me. There's an app called Watch Duty, right, on the Play Store and the iOS store that will notify you if there's been an evacuation order put out for your area, for your county. So make sure that if you are in one of these areas in southwestern California, that you do whatever you can to find out if you've been ordered to evacuate. That way you can get out of there as quickly as possible.
Okay, if I can interject over here. I see 2 reports from Los Angeles Scanner that they're fighting with someone, the fire department's fighting with someone, refusing to leave their house, and they also have a trapped person on Jakin Way. That's in Los Angeles somewhere.
Man, hopefully they can get out of there. That's crazy that people are refusing to leave their homes. That's absolutely insane. Go ahead, Derek.
Yeah, well, I'd say a lot of them are not leaving because they've never seen anything like this before. They're used to fires, but they probably don't realize how bad this really is. But my question is, I'm reading some comments in the Purple Pill, and I appreciate everybody down there. Somebody has said that a firefighter has died. Do we have any confirmed? Has anybody up here confirmed that? And if so, do we have any reports as to any casualties at this point? Because I mean, I believe this is going to be devastating at the end of the day.
We haven't gotten any confirmed reports of casualties up to this point. Just that, like you said, you just heard that one about the trapped person, but I haven't seen anything yet.
On the Lochner live stream earlier, there was a firefighter trapped. I don't know what happened with that firefighter. It was on the scanner, which he had live, so I'm not sure what happened with that.
So there's a storm chaser in the Palisades fire area. This was about 40 minutes ago, but it's just now being reported. It said that there was an explosion occurred that in Pacific Palisades, and that the power has gone out everywhere. That's the only reporting I've seen of that so far. And like I said, that was from about 40 minutes ago. So the reporting is just now, but they said that it occurred 40 minutes ago. We'll try to stay up to date on that and see if there's any more news.
Hey, Diligent, real quick on the evacuation thing. They're really good here. If you have to evacuate, you know you need
to
evacuate.
We continue to follow these breaking devices.
He probably can't hear you. Go ahead, Mike.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
No, I'll drop you down, Mike, and bring you back up. Breaking, go ahead.
Brother. All good.
Go ahead, Breaking.
All right. We're continuing to follow the breaking news out of California. At least 2 wildfires, one in Los Angeles and one just outside in the city of Pasadena, impacting residents, destroying structures, potentially injuring people. We don't have confirmation of that yet, but emergency officials are fighting this fire in such a way now because of the high winds that they're unable to reach many places. We have a statement from the President of the United States, who happens to be in LA currently. We have an emergency declaration from the governor, and the situation continues to develop. Santa Monica just announcing evacuation orders, showing the fire continuing to spread south, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm trying to get my maps up so I can help you out a little bit better with locations. The Pasadena fire. Police are reportedly overwhelmed, quote, by the state of this disaster, blocking off all of Palisades. A wall of flames and explosions are on the other side of the security line. That's an eyewitness and a CBS News national correspondent, Jonathan Lottie. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Right Angle News, do you have something to contribute? By the way, make sure you're following Raw's Alerts, our co-host Diligent, for the latest updates, and our other co-host MAGA Voice AZ Intel, Right Angle News Network. We're continuing not only to speak, but post, and not everything that we share is being discussed. So if you want...
Roz, are you still there? How is your family doing, man? Roz has got family that lives in the area that's been ordered to evacuate. Are they okay, Roz? Give us a second. Chime in whenever you get a chance, and please give us an update. But our prayers are with them. And if anybody's listening in the audience, if you live in any of the affected areas, please, first of all, get the hell out of there. Second of all, let us know. Tag me in the comments, tag MAGA Voice or Roz or Breaking 4 News, and let us know. And you can come up on stage and give us a live reporting of what you're observing and what it's like to be experiencing this. Go ahead, Breaking.
Okay, I have a...
Wait, before wait.
Yep, go for it.
I sent a interesting video in the Jomo box. PM Breaking News posted a video which showed the power studies, the Los Angeles fire scene of a plane which is landing at the Los Angeles International Airport.
Yeah, that's crazy. The amount of devastation, it's crazy. You got a bad connection, AZ. You drop down, and I'm gonna drop you down and bring you back up.
All right, go for it.
I have a little bit more clarity on the Santa Monica evacuation order. So San Vicente runs west to east or east to west, essentially just along the border with Pacific Palisades. Now there are several blocks in between, small streets, and that is the area that's currently under evacuation. So anything north of San Vicente in the city of Santa Monica is currently being evacuated. That is in order, a lawful order, meaning it must be adhered to. So anyone listening to the space currently in the Santa Monica area, if you live north of San Vicente or even a little bit south of San Vicente, now is the time to begin preparations to evacuate that area as this fire continues to move south because of these strong Santa Ana winds. We continue to get breaking news information as mentioned by AZ Intel. There are still some airports in the area that are functioning, and as that happens, lots of footage is coming in of the fire from the air. Although I would assume that if the firefighting aircraft are not able to be in the air, then a ground stop will be implemented in surrounding airports for civilian aircraft as well. That usually is the second step there. So we'll continue to monitor that. As I mentioned earlier, for those of you who are just joining us, these intense wildfire situations, they create their own weather systems. And it's something that's studied by meteorologists. And you are able to get much more extreme weather conditions, whether it's wind or even potentially some sort of a lightning, electricity situation within these wildfires because of their power. So we have this phenomenon of a weather tornado, fire tornado, excuse me. I've seen multiple videos from this particular fire today showing some spin-offs there. Those fire tornadoes are able to move incredibly quickly over dry brush, igniting everything in its path, including structures. And we've seen multiple of those throughout the fire, which started just several hours ago. So this is a new situation for California, only about 10 to 12 hours old. And we're already at well above 2,900 acres. 2,900 was the latest update we got approximately 45 minutes to an hour ago. And it's been at doubling pretty much every hour. So that's what we're dealing with currently. And we will continue to provide you with any updates.
Getting reports that people are losing power in the Los Angeles area. And JT300 said that they, or 3000, I'm sorry, just came up here and said that they were close to there and it was chaos. Go ahead, JT3000, give us your report. Can you hear me?
I'm also there, by the way.
Okay, go ahead, Excalibur.
All right, guys, I just drove through the 405. I just came from Beverly Hills. All right, I'm visiting a friend, and I just drove through. I just got back about an hour ago. It's pretty insane. The smoke is all the way. The moment I stepped outside in Beverly Hills, I could see it all the way from there. It looks like something out of Mordor, like straight up. And I wanted everybody to be informed. If anybody is driving through the Los Angeles area, 405 highway is packed, yes, but please do not, and I highly advise you to consider this, do not take Sepulveda or Montana Avenue or any of the side roads or any of the highway streets. Those are not only congested right now, you might be able to move, might not be able to, but they're very tight roads, and they're close in proximity to the hills that are right next to Pacific Palisades. It's very dangerous. This is pure fire country. You can easily spread there. And it's not just that. It's a heavily windy day. Extremely windy right now, like in the entire Los Angeles area. And when I say windy, I mean that I was holding like a bag of food walking around near Rodeo Drive, and my bag of food was literally like falling out of my hands. Like that's how strong the winds are today. So please be careful.
I just got an update too. It's 2,921 acres on fire right now in the Palisades area.
Insanity, complete insanity, and it's probably going to keep going, guys. Like this.
Can I chime in?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so this is JT. I'm in the area. It's called Glen Oaks, like the hills of Glen Oaks. So it's near Pasadena. We just had, first of all, I've lived in LA most of my life. I've never seen wind like this ever. This is like crazy. A transformer just went out on my street. I looked at the skyline down the hill. I saw 2 transformers going out in Los Angeles. The trees in my neighborhood are all falling down. It's like, seriously, it's chaos. I've never seen this. It looks biblical. So I just want to say, man, be careful out there. I have to go. I'm sorry. I'm going to the store for cigarettes, and I'm like, man, I don't even know what's like. Seriously, stuff is falling down all over the place. My eyes are burning right now. My voice is I feel sick, and it's like chaos out there. So it's just, that's what's going on the ground, and I'm near Pasadena. And thanks, guys, for doing this, because I wasn't really sure what's going on.
Yeah, I got a friend over in Santa Monica right now, and I can't even get a hold of him. I'm pretty sure the power is out in the greater Santa Monica area.
Yeah, we're getting more to that point. I have an update from the city of Santa Monica. I'm going to read out now. City of Santa Monica is issuing an evacuation order for all areas of the city north of St. Vincent. The evacuation order is an immediate threat to life. This is a lawful order to leave now. The area is closed to the public per the city of Santa Monica. Note this area falls within previously noted Genesis Zone LOS-Q0767. I'm using the Watch Duty app, and this app is pretty amazing from what I've used so far. If you are in the area or anywhere near the area that's affected, I highly suggest you download it because it will notify you of an evacuation order right away as soon as they issue it. So, additionally, the fires mapping from the approximate 1 hour. Dang, it just updated while I was reading it. The fire approximately 1 hour ago, 2,921 acres, is now viewable on the Watch Duty map. I'll pull the map up and I'll throw it up in the Jumbotron. Go ahead, Brick Soup.
I just want to throw out there where we're hearing reports of power going out. It can be from wind. As the one caller just said, saw some transformers go out, but at some point, power companies might have to de-energize their lines, and that could affect all sorts of things from cell phone towers. So if you don't hear from somebody that you were hearing from, it could just be power out in their area, because that's going to be a precaution, because these big, these electric companies, they've been sued, and this is the way they respond. When there's wind and they have power lines that are above ground, they will shut them down.
Hey, can I say something? Hello?
Go ahead, bud.
I'm in Santa Monica. It's the road is San Vicente. It's the marker, and we're just a couple blocks south of there. Our power's still on, but I can look out my front yard on my corner and just see the hills beyond just all in flames and burning, and several of my friends have had to leave their houses. A couple of them the houses are going up, and a couple more have left and know that their houses won't be there when they get back. It's gone insane. The wind is whipping up here in Santa Monica and even more in the hills of Santa Monica. Like I've never even seen it anywhere close to this in the 30 years I've been here. So it's absolutely just the worst conditions for this. This night is going to get really bad over here.
Thank you for that, Mike. Do you have smoke over your house? Is there smoke over your house right now? Mike, he's talking to you. I can't hear if he's talking.
Talking to me?
Mike.
Well, the smoke.
There you go.
The smoke is going out towards the ocean. So it's just to the west of us. So I'm 14 blocks from the ocean. So it's not like normal when there's fires up in the hills. We're having crazy smoke in the air, but there's no smoke in our air because the wind is so bad and it's going in the opposite direction. But the sad thing is that the wind is going in the direction